Okay, hello. This is the May video chat. I have several announcements this time. Might go on for like 10 minutes or so, or we'll see. Then I'll get to the regular questions. Oh yeah, you can see light peering in on the background. Okay, so yeah, the first thing, I guess on videos, still not where I want to be, but a lot of stuff's kind of coming together. I think, again, this isn't a promise, but high probability. By next video chat, we'll have a game dungeon, we'll have another Freeman's Mind, and maybe a side video. That one's a little more iffy. Although for Freeman's Mind, I want to have a caveat that someone else helps me with the sound effects. So if it takes them longer, it's going to take them longer. But I'll be done on my end for the next Freeman's Mind. And it's going to be about as long as the previous one. So it'll be a longer episode. So, yeah, there's more coming. But before next video chat, that's my plan. And it's undergoing well. Okay, so the first kind of bigger announcement, just a quick recap. Last video chat, someone was asking me questions about AI, about an expert on it. And then later, that expert ended up emailing me and asked if I wanted to do an interview. So I figured, sure, why not? And he didn't want me to, he wanted me in the dark as sort of like an experiment of talking to the public or something like that. I'm not sure. So anyway, that's the previous video on the channel right now. I think it could have gone better. The reactions were all over the place. A lot of people found it frustrating, like the style. And in retrospect, I think it wasn't like the best way to handle things. I think me going in blind wasn't helpful. Like if I had known more about like what his stance was, I think we could have chopped off half an hour to an hour to it. And also, I think the person, I always forget how to pronounce his first name, but his last name is Yutkowski. What? Yeah, it ended up turning, I wasn't sure how it was going to go. Like, I mean, my plan was to have like a discussion, but there was one part I disagreed with. And that did turn into more of a debate, but it was kind of friendly in nature. Let's see. I was hoping he would kind of explain like the flaws of my reasoning. And if he did, I didn't get it. But in his defense, like I think he may, well, okay, I'll get to that in a minute. And I'll give like another couple minutes on like stuff I meant to add after the debate. But this sort of kicked off something I was sort of toying with anyway. If you guys have been watching or listening to these, you know I can have a bad habit of sometimes repeating myself. And I've thought before, gee, it'd be nice if there was like somebody else that could kind of catch me on that while I'm doing it to, make it more watchable for you. But I was thinking, since I was fine kind of interviewing a random person, I'd sort of toyed with that idea anyway. So first I wanted to get like the audience feedback of that. Would people be interested in me doing something else like this if I had like more of a screening process? And because I didn't know anything about Yutkowski other than the fans, at least some of the fans watching this video were interested in him and wanted to kind of sort out the AI stuff. But if you'd be interested in like me having like another interview or a chat kind of thing with other people, wouldn't even have to be about AI. It could be various topics. Then I think I might want to do more of that. It's not going to be like a shift to me being an interviewer and forget about the other videos. This would be secondary to the main videos, like, Freeman's Mind, Game Dungeon, stuff like that. But it doesn't take that much work, at least on my end. I mean, I would say doing one of those interviews takes like a 50th of the work, or maybe more depending on the video, of doing like what I would call a real video where it's like fully edited, put together, sound editing, that sort of thing. So, I mean, yeah, it would take a little bit of time, but not much more than like, that afternoon or a day with like prep work, that sort of thing. It could be like once a month, maybe a little more. So if people are interested in that, I was going to say I might open it up to whoever, because I actually don't care. Like, you don't have to be well known. I actually don't really care about that. I'm more interested in like what the person would be having to say. That's so it could be somebody, it could be one of you watching this, or just somebody you know. However, I think, like I said, I think I would want to screen it a little bit and have maybe you could at least make a pitch for me, like what sort of topics you might want to talk about. You know, you can send me an email on rosswscott@gmail.com, and I could just look through them. And I might be kind of picky because it could be the sort of thing where, like, you know everything there is to know about, like, the history of squirrels or something like that. Well, I'm sure you're very knowledgeable, but that might be kind of wasted on me because I'm not that interested in it. So, again, I'll probably be a little picky. So you don't be offended if I don't pick you as like a future guest. But if you bring up a topic, like, you might surprise me with topics that I might want to talk about. But like some off the top of my head, or like trying to figure out where we're going in the future, or maybe some like psychology or philosophy stuff, or stuff, interesting stuff related to games that you think it would be, I'm probably not haven't hit or may not hit on Game Dungeon, or you want to expand on something, conversation about that, maybe films, that's or music. And it would be a bonus if you have at least a video clip or something of you talking about anything, just so I can get an idea of what you're like. But yeah, I think, and again, I'm making no promises. If I don't get enough entries, or I don't really like any of the like proposed topics or themes, then there may not be future ones. But if people are, oh yeah, some of the GY Madness interview, yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess it would be a bit of a spoiler for the future, for the follow up. I might push that one back a little bit to see if I can kind of race to get my own video out first before having that. But it can be stuff I haven't talked about either. But you'll just, again, you can send me a pitch of so like what will be a good conversation. It doesn't. It can just be a conversation. I mean, it can be a debate if you know we have like a real difference on something, and I feel like it's worth kind of going through. I'm not really looking for debates so much. To me, the value of a debate is if I'm unclear on or kind of uncertain on the truth of something, and this is a question I want answered, and then it's like kind of an investigative thing for me, like you know, where it's like, okay, well, let's really try to get through down to this idea and like figure out who's right or wrong here if we can, that sort of thing. Like I would want a debate moderated by Vulcans is the sort of debate I would want. Let's see, but again, it doesn't have to be. It could just be like discussing different ideas or things like that. So yeah, I'm willing to experiment with that. Maybe, and if people are open to the idea, and it looks like, oh yeah, that's the other thing. Since this is a secondary thing for me, I'm probably not going to go out of my way to like find guests. So it's going to work better if whoever contacts me, you know, through email especially. So because I can just work on the other videos. So this is just sort of a fun side thing I might do. So yeah, if there's somebody you really want me to interview, see if they're interested in talking to me, and you might want to wait until I do another one or two, so that the Yukowski one isn't like the baseline one, because that one was just sort of out of the blue, and I kind of screwed up on the technical aspect of it. The chat was too tiny when I had that, and like I could have framed the pictures better. I was scrambling to do that just before he came in, since I couldn't really have that all set up ahead of time. But okay, so if people are open to the idea, I may actually already have a guest lined up. I told them I was going to wait until I discuss this with the audience first to make sure people just didn't hate the idea and just like I don't remember his name, but this is this. If I go with this person, it'll be at least partially about AI, because I feel like I didn't really get quite an answer that satisfied me with the Yudkowsky discussion. I think he is taking the stance that AI will be sentient, so we're gonna have a disagreement, I think, but I mean a friendly one. But the what? I don't think he's taking the stance that it's going to make us all extinct, but that's okay. To me, it's the same kind of pivot point, where what's linchpin point, that I don't think it's going to become super intelligent. So maybe he can give me his reasoning for that. But I say partially because we might discuss other aspects, even if we just have no progress at all on that. Like, he still has his stance, I still have mine, and I'm not really satisfied with the answer. We can talk about other things, because there's other aspects of AI that might be interesting. Plus, he also has a background in sociology, which is something I'm interested in. So I might have just some non-AI questions for him on just like where does he think we're going, or where are we going with society? Because I can see a few trends. Maybe there's some trends he's seeing I'm unaware of. So again, I tend to be interested in stuff like that, about trying to see where we're going in the future. And this looks a little crooked. So yeah, I'll have an announcement on that. I mean, possibly in a few days. I'll put it on the YouTube community tab, on Twitter, and on the website at curseforums.com if you want to try to catch it live. And these will all go on YouTube afterwards. So I don't think his name is Rudy. Oh, but it sounds like that's somebody. Yeah, it sounds like people are giving suggestions. Well, don't give the suggestions to me. Contact them. Well, maybe later, once I have. You can show them the Stuart Makareth interview if you want. I think that was his last name. Or on Tom's channel at Weird Video Games, I had an interview with Alexander Brandon. That was another more normal one. But yeah, so that's an announcement that I might do this as like a side thing, because it won't be too much effort, and I think it could be interesting. So, or if people have suggestions on the name, if I should probably name this if it becomes a regular thing. I don't know. I was just thinking maybe Ross Talk or something. Maybe somebody has a better idea. So yeah, like this other guy I've lined up, I think it'll be more chill. Like, so even if we do have like an impasse, it'll be just like agree to disagree kind of thing, which is, let's see. Oh yeah, okay. So, and the other thing was, several people were suggesting other AI experts that might be. Oh yeah, I should pull up something I meant. Other AI experts that would kind of take more my stance and explain, like, no, it's not going to reach super intelligence because this. Let's get into the nitty gritty of how it works. And my reasoning, and I'm not really that eager to do that kind of interview, because I think it would just kind of confirm what I already think. It might be educational, but I'm curious where this is coming from that people think it's going to be super intelligent, because I'm not really seeing it. And the thing is, even if they give like a bulletproof explanation of why it's not going to happen, well, then the people who are saying they are going to become super intelligent, like an AI, they might say like, oh, well, this person misrepresented their argument, or they're missing this other stuff. So it doesn't really resolve it for me. Like, my approach is, when I don't know the answer to something that's controversial, I like to hear both sides. Like, I like to hear like their best arguments on both sides and just kind of compare the two. So I'd rather hear, on this particular issue, I'd rather hear like a more like defined explanation of this. Oh, and speaking of which, shortly before I went on, it's on the website now at cursefarms.com. The last discussion I had with Yudkowsky was it kind of bugged me how we sort of veered off, like the topics. It got like kind of felt like it kind of got lost in the weeds on like some parts that weren't as important in my opinion. So I probably wasted my time here. I went and made a chart that just mapped out my entire thoughts on risk of AI, artificial intelligence. And someone actually helped it make it even look nice. So this looks pretty slick. Mine was just like this kind of text and scribbled boxes. But so here, I'm putting it in the chat. It's also on curseforums.com. I was gonna host the image. When I was trying to upload it, I got an error, so I couldn't upload my image to my own site. So it's on image hosting website at the moment. So the link might change later, but I wanted to make sure it was up in time. You're probably not going to want to read it while you're listening to me because there's a lot in there. But in that chart, I really try to narrow down where I think the disagreement is on superintelligence, where I tried to present the arguments I heard for it as I understood them, but then I left blanks, like where I put down my stance why I don't think that's going to be the case, and I left blanks for counterpoints, and I also left a blank for maybe there's another explanation I'm not aware of. And then that's what leads to superintelligence. So this doesn't like close the book on it, but I really want to like narrow down where the disagreement is because I feel like that's the best way to try to get to the truth of things. So yeah, it's if you were confused, if you didn't want to watch that debate and you just want to know like where my mind was at, click on that chart and it should fill you in. And that was the best with my understanding. Yeah, again, okay, so a couple things I wanted to add to the debate since we had it. Just, I'll try to go through this quickly. Yeah, Yudkowsky lost me at multiple points. However, I don't blame him because when he after, yeah, he wanted me to go in blind, not know much about him, which I did. But after the debate, I went and looked at his Twitter to see if like he had posted anything else on it, and he had this other post where it was sort of on capitalism and some other reference which I didn't know. I think it was I looked it up later, and it was like a fan fiction of his, and I understood like the first couple lines. But then I just looked at it again and again, and I just had no idea what the hell he was saying. So he absolutely tried his best to dumb it down for me. Because if he wanted to talk at what he's normally more comfortable with, I wouldn't have understood a thing. So I was thinking back to the Dark Spore episode I did on Game Dungeon, where I was talking about like, you know, how in college, like some classes can kind of incentivize making what you're saying just as complex as possible. You know, even if you're just saying something simple and get real wordy and kind of cross-reference things and not make it clear. I think whatever his career has been, it has incentivized that style for him. So that he probably takes to that like a fish to water. So even if he was completely right, I can say he was the wrong person to explain his concerns to me. He would need a translator. You know, he tried to dumb it down for me. We needed to go dumber, is what happened. So, let's see. Oh yeah, like something, I'll bring this up like real quick. Like, I think I could have cut half an hour out of the discussion because at one point we got caught up on free will, and I wasn't really sure not free will, whether it was real or fake. Like intelligence. And I was trying to follow him, but I wasn't sure. During the debate, you can see me, I was just lost where he was going. So I was just trying to answer his questions as he gave them to me. Yeah, in fact, that was one of the most liked comments is when he asked if I thought a clock was real. And I said, yes, I believe clocks are real. So I don't know if that was a gotcha on his part or what. If he got me, I never realized it. But the point I was getting at with that was sort of 2 points. Was it doesn't really matter. Like I think in retrospect, I think I know where he was going with it. where it doesn't really matter if you consider it real or fake. It just depends on what it can do and if there's an observable metric for that. So, because I think in retrospect, what he was saying was, if an AI can do every single thought like a human can, is it really not real, or is it really fake? And actually, I'm fine with that. If he wants to say, well, that's real, then sure, because then we're just sort of splitting hairs on what's real and fake. And that my whole point was, there are things a human intelligence can do that even a really good AI cannot. And I don't think we've seen any signs of that. And the other point I was making was that, oh yeah, I feel like such an idiot. I forgot to complete my metaphor in the debate where I was talking about ray tracing. If you have like an outdoor, let's say you have a ray trace picture of like of the outdoors, and it looks photorealistic because it's calculating light very similarly to how it works in the real world. Well, just because it looks almost identical, that doesn't mean the ray tracing software is the sun. The sun does a lot more than what you see in a ray tracing program. There's a hell of a lot more going on there. So that's the point I was getting at between like fake and real, is that just because some things are incredibly similar and do things in the same basic way, they can still be a world apart from that. So that was the other point. And yeah, the other point was with free will was one metric for determining. Yeah, people mentioned earlier, what I was talking about was like the Chinese room metaphor, I think, where you can't tell, where you're having trouble telling the difference between a really good mimic, which is not intelligent, but just fantastic at deciphering patterns so that it sounds like you are talking to a real person, versus an actual person. At least one metric would be free will. So in other words, a real person can just decide, what, I'm tired of this, I'm going to do something else. And whereas a chat program, at least right now, cannot do that. Like if you type to it, it can't really decide it doesn't want to keep responding to you, or it can't decide it wants to keep talking to you before you've had a chance to respond, or change the subject entirely and not let it quit. I mean, you could program it to do that, but then that's not really free will then. Now that gets into the philosophical argument of, do humans have free will? But that's another thing entirely. So that's all the, you notice on that chart I gave, I didn't even mention the real and fake stuff. So whether you want to call it real or fake, that was just a tool. That was just a description I was using to try to explain where my mind was on that, to distinguish between what I would consider intelligence versus a mimic. There might be some other metric I don't know about that people thought of. Let's see. I'm checking my notes here. Oh yeah, and I think, now all that said, I mean no offense for Yudkowsky, but my evaluation as a layman, and I think of the people making this argument so far, and maybe they can prove me wrong. That's what the chart's for. It helps them pinpoint where I'm not getting it, is I think the main point that we disagree on is when we say like an artificial neural network is really similar to the brain. And it's like, the more I've learned since then, the more I realize I think we're not even close. Like a friend of mine made a comparison between, it's like the difference between a paper airplane and an actual freight plane. The freight plane can do a hell of a lot more than the paper airplane, even though they both operate on the principle of lift, and air friction. Same principle, world apart as far as the complexity and what they're capable of. With neuron, and I think that's the case with, artificial neural networks versus the brain. So I think that's a flaw they have in their argument. Again, I'm nowhere near enough of an expert to like assert this and say that, but that's where my mind's at with this. And I actually, after the debate, I did a search just for like, to try to find like just a boiled down explanation of like the difference between artificial neural networks and, neurons. And there's a good link. I'll put this in the description later. I'll put it in the chat now. This read like a textbook 101 trying to explain it. And I'm going to quote from this source. So this is not me saying this. This is somebody who knows more about it than me. To simulate physical neurons, we simplify them as data structure. Every simulated neuron can contain up to 2 numbers by default. This is way simpler than the physical world. Therefore, it is inaccurate to say that simulated neurons are based on physical neurons. What we attempt to simulate is the flow of information within the network, as the data backpropagates both in the brain and in artificial neural networks. This is nothing more than a simple abstraction. Okay, so it's like that paper airplane versus the full plane. And actually, my wife chimed in on this, where she'd been doing her own kind of research long before this, where she was telling me that they made this discovery about how there's even more going on in neurons than we realized. So I'm just gonna, this is so much above my level here. I'm gonna put some links in the chat. I'll put this all in, I'll put this all in the description later. But I'm just gonna read the title of the first one. Discovery of quantum vibrations and microtubules inside brain neurons corroborates controversial 20-year-old theory of consciousness. And like my caveman level understanding of what they're saying is that there's vibrations going on more similar to how a quantum computer operates on just in every individual neuron. It might even be in every individual cell. And they're saying this might be how consciousness works. So I think what the artificial neural network is doing is they're kind of modeling that like signal sent between different neurons and leads to a chain of how that connects. Whereas an actual neuron, I mean, there's the whole complexity of the cell in itself, but that's an analog process that's happening. Like the intensity can change in the signal. They're going to be different neurotransmitters. And this other level, maybe, where things are vibrating on the quantum level. And that's the part that does consciousness. And I'm not sure artificial neural networks emulate any of that aspect. I don't know. So that's what I mean. Neurons are really frigging complicated. So even though AI software is also very frigging complicated, neurons are I think they're just leagues beyond that. That's sort of what I was getting at with space travel. It's been incredible the progress we've made from just motorized flight to landing on the moon. Whereas we're still not any closer to exploring galaxies. Galaxies are another level. So that's what I was kind of getting at, is just sort of a comparison. Okay, let's see. I think that's most of what I had to say. Oh yeah, okay. Again, I'm not trying to offend anyone on this, but right now where my brain is at is I can accept that Yukowski's at a level where he has difficulty explaining it to me because I'm just too dumb compared to the level he's used to talking, or too ignorant or whatever. However, that's why at the end of the debate, I tried to sort of punt it to the audience. I'm thinking, okay, well, if he has trouble dumbing this down for me, maybe somebody else can. And so far, I haven't heard an argument that I didn't see like an obvious like logical flaw to me. That's what the chart's for. That'll help pinpoint it. Now, it could be, if you did it in YouTube comments, I might have missed it completely. Email is if you send me an email, there's a 99% chance I'm going to see it. So I've been trying to reply to some people. Some I still need to respond to, but I haven't seen that yet. So what I'm thinking is, if Yukowski has his own following, to me, Occam's razor should say that, well, if he can't explain it, somebody who follows him and gets all this should be able to dumb it down for me. And if that hasn't happened yet, that makes me think maybe they don't really have an answer for that jump from a really good mimic to actual intelligence. So that, again, I'm not closing the book on this, but I'm trying to narrow it down. So that kind of reinforced, that whole discussion kind of reinforced my own stance. However, if you think you can explain it, especially once you've seen my chart, go for it. You can email me on it. But if not, then I think superintelligence isn't a risk, which means lots of other things that stem from that aren't a risk. And that doesn't mean there are no risks. I listed out every one I could think of on that chart, but it's on a different level. So let's see. The last thing I was going to say about the debate is there is one part I regret saying, and it's not really what I meant, and I sort of want to retract it or walk it back. When we were talking about like the threat of extinction, I was saying something like, well, I think it could be extinction in like 80 to 120 years. The reality is I have no idea. The reality is more like that follow-up video where I talked about the fog of badness. That's where my mind is. However, it was the sort of situation where I had this, like my intuition had this thought that I thought, well, wait, no, I do have a counterpoint I want to make to this. And my conscious brain wasn't able to make the connection, so it just grabbed something else. And I was saying, okay, well, maybe this is what I mean. And I realized, no, that's not what I mean. So what I meant to say was the threat of extinction from like environmental collapse is something that seems like a proven threat in my mind. So whereas threat of extinction from AI seems much hazier. Now at that point probably wouldn't have mattered in that debate because I think in Yukowski's mind it's already proven. So that wouldn't have meant anything to him. But I wasn't trying to say like, no, we have no chance, we're gonna be extinct in like 150 years. I don't know, I need to learn more. I think there's a few scenarios that might do it from environmental collapse. Like if we just kill the oceans, I think that was like, it was either like 85 or 93% of like all the oxygen on Earth is produced there. So we might adapt to that in time if we're not taken off guard, but that would be much more dystopian. Or another thing with global warming, I have no idea how bad that actually gets with global warming. Like I took a guess in that follow-up video, the Game Dungeon follow-up 3, but I don't know. I need to learn more. So, I mean, if it does, maybe if the theory about how we have like a super hot Earth or whatever it's called, where we do turn into the next Venus, well then, yeah, we don't survive that extinction-wise. But I think it doesn't get quite that bad, but it gets hazy. What I feel confident saying about the risk of environmental collapse is I think we are risking having billions die in the future and also risking having lifespans permanently lowered. So that lifespans are just on average like 20 years lower than they used to be because of just, there's a lot of things we can survive, but we can't survive into old age, like buildup of certain toxins, that sort of thing. However, natural selection doesn't really care about that. They just care if you reproduce. So, yeah, so that's what I was getting at. I wasn't trying to say, no, that's a certain thing, so why bother? I didn't mean that. I would want to retract that part of the debate that I said. That wasn't really what I meant. I was getting kind of worn down by the discussion by that point, so wasn't thinking as well. So yeah, that's it on the debates or discussion. Let's see. Oh yeah, and I have one final announcement. I was hoping this wouldn't be an announcement, but it is. As part of a future video, I'm looking at some aspects of Linux and just with different hardware and running games, that sort of thing. I've had a couple like experts helping me that know a lot. I have run into a roadblock with both of them. I am trying to get gamescope running on some flavor of Ubuntu Linux with an NVIDIA card. And it is just not happening. And I made a forum post on this. Here's a link I'm putting in the chat. This will be in the description on YouTube later. You can see everything I've done so far, like following their advice. And it kind of lays out everything. We just haven't been able to get it to work. Like it is just not happening. I think they've gotten it to work on their end. I can't get it working on mine. So yeah, somebody's saying call to arms for all Linux fanatics. Yeah, you don't have to register in my forums if you have an answer. You can also email me, rustwscott@gmail.com. But if you want everybody else to see the answer, just go ahead and sign up on the forums and you can post it there. So I was hoping to resolve this, but man, like I just went through a lot of steps on this and it's just not happening. I think all the relevant information's there. So let's see. I think that's everything. Okay, so oh yeah, that was another idea I had. Like with these discussions, maybe if we get somebody that wants to do more of the video chats, they can provide like good color commentary. Maybe this could stop being a solo operation, and then we have somebody else joining me. Most the people like for just kind of give extra color commentary on the things that come up, and they can stop me from repeating myself so much. So okay, so first actual question that people submitted. How are things going with your editor? And I don't really have a regular editor. There was an editor for Mage Knight Apocalypse episode, but what I found was it wasn't really saving me time. That said, this other side video I want to do, it's going to be like in a similar style as the Star Trek video I did, the Star Trek Apocalypse one, but on a different subject. But might be longer too. I plan to kick off like 90% or more of that to another editor that kind of went through my rounds on things, because I think that's something, yeah, this would be good if somebody else was doing this. Like I don't have to be, for Game Dungeon, I'm still pretty picky. We'll see. But yeah, I don't have a regular editor. It's pretty much the Mage Knight Apocalypse. Well, you can always check the credits, but Mage Knight Apocalypse is mostly somebody else. But even then, I went through and did a bunch of tweaks and other stuff. Oh, okay, actually, this reminds me of something else a bit of a spoiler. On this side video, it's not exclusively about this, but this is part of the video. If anyone is interested in helping as a Mass Effect lore master, and or somebody who can get me all the saves or footage I need of certain scenes of Mass Effect, let me know. Someone's helped. Yeah, Master Cookie has already helped me somewhat, but I realize I'm going to need some more. And Mass Effect, out of the Mass Effect games, like 1, 2, and 3. Mass Effect's one of those games where if you're trying to get to a specific spot and under certain conditions, that can actually take like a lot of time to do that. So if somebody's like all into Mass Effect, this could be the same person or two different people. I want one person to be able to kind of clarify everything I'm thinking about this certain aspect of Mass Effect, and then another person to help me get all these saves and the footage and everything so I can kind of show it in a future video. So this side video, it's partially going to cover Mass Effect, but that's not the only thing. It's just something that kind of ties in neatly with that. So, and I don't want to have to spend hours going through all the conversations again and, replaying it and then making sure I have these conditions and that sort of thing. So I was thinking somebody else, they might be happy for an excuse to play Mass Effect again to get this and then get their names in the credits of the videos. So. Okay, Master Cookie's saying he can get more. Okay, so you might get crowded out by... Well, Master Cookie, my main issue with your footage, I realized, was I kind of want to just have like a vanilla, male shepherd. Just so it's easier to like because he had this exotic armor he was wearing. I was thinking, well, this is going to be kind of distracting from the point because he had him looking like a bug man or something. So I didn't have the heart to ask Master Cookie to record that again. So, but if he wants to do it, he could do it. So yeah, nothing from Andromeda. This is all from, it's mostly from 2 and 3, a little bit from 1. So, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, next question, I guess. Let's see, do you have any plans for the 10-year anniversary of Game Dungeon this October? Likewise, do you have any ideas of what you want to do for Freeman's Mind 20th anniversary in 2027? Well, the answer to the second question, yeah, I want to be done with Freeman. I want to have completed Freeman's Mind by then. For the first one, not really, but you should have a follow-up before then. I had no idea that was like the 10th year anniversary coming up of it. Like, I don't really pay attention to that sort of thing. Like, I don't know, I'm sort of the mentality where, like, say you're a real fan of something, like a series or movies or something, and there's like a 10th anniversary or 25th anniversary thing of that. Well, usually it's just kind of like a rehash of what you've already seen and maybe some interviews or behind the scenes stuff. Whereas I'd rather just have a new episode or you know, more new content. And so that's kind of the mentality I take in that sort of thing. Plus, I'm still kind of behind where I want to be. So I think I'd rather just give you guys more Game Dungeon or give you guys more Freeman's Mind than have like a special anniversary thing. So that's my mentality. Yeah, like I want to say like the worst Star Trek, the worst episode of Star Trek The Next Generation was the one where like Riker was in a coma or something, and like it was like 80% just flashback footage from previous episodes. Those are like the worst episodes of like any series. So, because you've already seen it. And if you haven't, you'd probably rather just see the original episode. So, yeah, it's, yeah, Game Dungeon Clip Show Edition. Yeah, I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not above repeating a joke I really like, but that'll be like 10 seconds or something, you know, so. All right, so more questions. Has the community changed anything in terms of the production of your videos? For example, do you think more about how your community will react to your videos compared to before doing the chats? Actually, well, I mean, they obviously influenced that Yudkowsky discussion because that's where it came from, the feedback on that. Not really. I mean, I try to make the videos as though, like, I kind of put myself, well, if I was watching this channel, never heard of it, would I find this interesting? And look at it that way. Plus, I figure the people showing up for these video chats, you're probably like kind of more hardcore fans, whereas you're probably representing a minority of the viewers. And the minority of people they'll watch it if they think the video is going to be good, and they won't if they don't. So I'm trying to kind of give something that, you know, just because it appeases you guys, if it feels to me like, no, I think the average person is not going to find this that interesting, then I might throw it out. So it's, but yeah, doing these chats might lead to me having some more interview sessions, that sort of thing. So, and the feedback on Moon Gaming definitely influenced things, but that was more from like the commentary from YouTube. So I'm afraid I don't weigh your guys' opinion too heavily from these for the outcome. But the underlying goal is I want to make something good for you. So I think we're still on the same page with that. I don't want to, like, you know, I don't want to. That's the term I'm looking for. I don't want to cave into fan demand too much, or because I've seen some things do that where they're doing like nothing but to try to satisfy the fans, and then like it doesn't get as good. So, you know, I'm comfortable with offending anyone in any given video to a degree. I mean, if it's something I think is real or I think it's a good joke, then I'll just go for it. And I think that'll kind of keep it better rather than if everybody's saying just do more of this, well, no, if everybody's saying that, I'll take it into consideration. But if it's just the fan chat, yeah, the chat's saying this is not a democracy. I have a gun, so I'm in charge. Yeah, it's more of like a constitutional monarchy kind of thing where, no, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. But you guys can give feedback. So it's, let's see, there's, oh yeah, Tom White, of Weird Video Games, he had a idea he told me about before where, you know how when they make movies, or especially big budget movies, they'll have like test audience and test screenings to see if like the movie, they're getting the reaction they want from people. And he had the idea of being able to sabotage those so that if you could kind of like put plants in them and then they're watching, they don't seem interested. And then all of a sudden everybody starts clapping and says, monkey, monkey. And like, cause there's a monkey on the screen. So they start getting feedback on that. So he starts, so he had the idea of like wanting to sabotage these test screenings so that they're incentivizing just really weird things. So, stuff like that. But yeah, most of my screening for how the chats go is me imagining myself as an audience member. So, let's see. If you had the opportunity to instantly gain and fully comprehend any one language loaded into your mind, no risk or strings attached, what language would you pick? And then he's saying, would I get Polish to get it out of the way? Maybe Japanese or German to experience vast amount of untranslated games and media? Or some other language entirely? Okay, oh, they have an add-on. I didn't notice. Let's see. Oh, okay, well, he's that. Well, no, my answer would be Polish because I'm living in Poland, and that's something I'm meaning to make a habit out of. But I want to get more stuff done first. Well, I'm going to try to work on it like every single day. I have done this slowly with some other things. Like I am doing pull-ups every single day, and I wasn't in the past. So that's the tricky part, is to try to build the habit in the first place. And I want more other stuff settled, and then I'll start doing it like every day, just for practicality. But yeah, for cultural stuff, there is a whole ton of stuff for Japanese, but I'm actually not like the biggest fan of stuff like anime or manga or stuff like that. So it would probably be more of a, it's not that there isn't a lot of good stuff there if you like that, but I'm really picky in that sort of thing. I don't really like usually overacting or melodramatic things, and anime can be just rife with that. And some of the best, well, I imagine some of the best anime stuff tends to get subtitles and translated anyway. Yeah, maybe German, because there are a lot of obscure adventure games that I would be interested in that are in German. Possibly French too, because I'm just saying that, well, it wouldn't even apply, but I saw another video clip the other day, and the video was just somebody cutting somebody off in traffic. It was kind of funny. But I was looking at the surroundings. I was thinking, man, it looks gorgeous. Where is this? And once again, it's British Columbia. I swear 90% of the time that happens to me, it's British Columbia. However, it is British Columbia. There would be plenty of English speakers in there, so knowing French wouldn't be like a huge advantage if I were to live there. But well, visiting France would be pretty cool too. I mean, but yeah, I guess it would just be Polish because that would have a lot of practicality for me. So, Ross, what is the most rewarding part of having a creative career? You know, I stopped and had to think about it, and it's probably not what you think. I think it's more the absence of having a more traditional career. So it's probably a lot of the same things that, people who can work from home have. But I was thinking like because with jobs, like I can do a lot of tough jobs, but even jobs that I kind of liked, like at some places doing PC repair is all right. It can kind of work on me like mentally over a long period of time where I know that like every single day I have to get up and go to work. And like, it feels like my life, like, I have to show up no matter how good the job is. Like it can have like a real demoralizing impact on me where it's like, I feel like I'm just kind of like again, I'm not trying to compare this to like real life suppression kind of oppression kind of thing, but it kind of oppresses part of my brain. I think that even could have contributed to some of my depression in the past, where it's not even like the quantity of work. It's like that knowing you have to do it tomorrow at this time, and you're gonna have to do that for every day in the foreseeable future. And it's just like, it just works on me on a level that like really bothers me the longer I go at it. Whereas like it goes to the point where even if it was a good job, I might consider joining one of those intentional communities out in the middle of nowhere where I might be spending double the amount of work just like growing food or something. But I at least know I don't have to do that. And also I know it's for me or for people around me that I know and that sort of thing. And it's not just kind of like a mindless thing, mindless thing that I'm just doing for a company. Because even if you're helping real people at a company, it's just all kind of anonymous. So it's like you don't really have any kind of connection with that. And like that really works on me. Like just feeling like I'm kind of trapped or imprisoned in this kind of existence, and like there's no way out of it. And it just, I think that probably worked. I mean, I'm sure everybody has that to a degree, but I think it hits me above average level because I realized if everybody felt as strong as I do about this, there would be like a revolt or like a general strike tomorrow. Because, just talking about people like, yeah, man, I can't stand this. Like, we should really try to, collective action would be far easier if everyone felt this way about like average jobs that you have to show up during these hours, and do this many days a week, that sort of thing. So I think it probably hits me above average. Not trying to discount. I don't think I'm unique. I think plenty of people it hits them this hard, but yeah, it starts doing things to my brain the longer I have to go on with it. I mean, months and months, that sort of thing, or in some cases, years. It's like I don't get used to it. I mean, it doesn't. What ends up happening is I think more and more of like that scene in Wolfhound where he's escaping the slave mines. It's more like that's where my mind starts going. I just don't get used to it. So, and it's not even like, it's not even as simple as something like lack of freedom. It's more like a very specific kind of lack of freedom, where like my life could be oppressive in other ways where I could only have this kind of food, or there's only, I'm trying to think of some other examples, or you can't say certain things, or I forget. But it's like the idea that like, no, your life hours have to be here doing this job like day in, day out. That's the part that like that's a real problem for me on a mental level. So this is also why I'm very sympathetic towards people who want better work conditions, or hey, maybe we need to rethink how we handle work entirely. Like what are our goals with this? That sort of thing. So I tend to be kind of pro-worker in almost just about every scenario, just in terms of my inclinations on it. So, but yes. Okay, well, somebody's asking in chat, how's Next Freeman's Mind coming along? It's majority done. I did kind of get sidetracked with some other stuff I was doing. Well, you can blame Linux for some of this, but it's coming along. It'll... for sure, I'll be done on my end before the next video chat. And it'll be about as long as the previous one. But yeah, I mean, for rewarding things, I mean, the most rewarding part, I think, of doing something creative is like seeing something I have in my mind kind of manifested the way I wanted, or else in sometimes not even the way I was envisioning, but in a really way I'm satisfied with. But that's something I could do even if I didn't have like a job related to it. I would just do that on my, well, that's how this started. I mean, with some like civil protection. I had zero, in, was not intentions, but expectations that this would turn to anything remotely profitable. Like I just wanted to do it. So, but yeah, just having flexibility on hours, I think probably have to be number one. In fact, I even saw a video with remote where somebody did a comparison between remote work of where one person's waking up at like 6 in the morning to get ready for work, and they're going through a shower and have to do their whole make food, go through their whole commute, and like have delays. And then the other person is waking up at like 8:40 or something like that, and then they just grab a snack, then they sit down in front of the computer, and they're both there on time at 9 o'clock. So yeah, I mean, it's, I'm not, I do think a certain, you know, actually, well, I had this thought before, but I remember a college professor I had said something like, you know, when he was talking about like this kind of home improvement stuff he was doing during the summer break. And he was saying he does think it is important to like have something you're working on, like just to sort of balance you out. And I do agree with that. But then he immediately said, "Not only 8 hours a day," or like, you know, like it's like, yeah, forget that. But you know, I do think it is important to have something to work on. But that could be your own initiative, or it doesn't have to be 8 hours a day, or you know, maybe some days it's 12 and then other days it's 3, you know, that sort of thing. It's, again, I think there's a lot of room for, I think there's a lot of room for reinterpreting work and like to make sure certain jobs get done and just, you know, for your own, I guess, mental health that, you know, I think there is some truth in, what was it? In the Odyssey, the land of the lotus eaters. You know, if you're unfamiliar with that, the idea is they ate this plant that tasted great and just made them kind of forget about stuff. Though they were just spending their whole lives just completely lounging around. I think it is more fulfilling to have something you're working on, but that doesn't mean that your work means you have to work 40 plus hours at Burger King as opposed to like maybe you want to build some stuff or again like or do art or something like that. But if we do need the Burger King jobs being done, then maybe we can have less hours of those. Or hey, maybe we can automate more of those jobs, which I think they are actually. So someone's saying, so is the military like the most stable, fulfilling job? Well, it depends on your state of mind. I mean, if it's certainly stable. Well, unless it's not ended prematurely because you're going into combat. But what I mean, if some people really do like a very like hard regimented lifestyle, in which case, yeah, military has a lot to offer for them. I mean, to me, it's all about purpose and for how long. Like if I have to do like I'm certain I'm someone who could handle something like boot camp, like mentally. But if I'm doing that year, because I know there's an end to that phase of it. But then if it's just like you're waking up this time at this post, everything for just years on end, that would wear me down mentally for sure. But and yes, I would. My hair would not survive boot camp for any that are wondering. I'm not delusional about that. So. But I have a different personality than other people. Again, some people really appreciate that structure. So, or some people maybe don't want it, but they really need it. You know, that's the other thing. Whereas I need the right goal that I give a damn about, and like the structure and motivation and drive will follow if I care about that goal. But if I don't, then or just have no respect for it other than the bare minimum, then not really. I mean, other than just whatever I have to. So And MCIA says the regimented life of Bane posting. Yeah, it's for sure something worth rethinking. However, that goes hand in hand with power dynamics because, you know, just because the vast majority of people think something is a good idea, that does not mean it happens. So it's the people in charge that have more of an influence on that. You don't strike me as the kind of person to destroy things in anger, but have any games ever made you want to? Yeah, well, I don't think I've ever destroyed things in anger over a game. However, I remember the angriest I ever remember being, I think I was about 12 years old. Might have been 11 or 13. I think I was 12. Was the original Prince of Persia. And I remember I played that a while and then just, I don't know, I just screwed up or got blindsided by something. I just remember just being so angry at that game. And like, I had to go outside. Like, it took me a while to cool off. But since then, I've kind of chilled for that. Yeah, actually, if people want to recommend like the best gamer rage clips, by all means, I've seen a few good ones. There's like a Counter-Strike one. This was years back because the guy grabbed it. He grabbed this. He's just going around the corner, and then bam, he gets sniped. Like as soon as he does, he goes ah, and then he grabs the CRT, holds it up in the air, and slams it down on the table. He was at a LAN party, and like he spills this other guy's drink that was right next to him. The other guy's like, okay, you know, and then he grabs the other guy, and I forget what he said. It might have been in Turkish or Hungarian or something like that. But he grabs the other guy, and I think somebody translated it, and they said, I think he said something like cowardly she-devil or something like that. And it just shuts out and he walks off because I guess it was the guy next to him. I'm sure there's lots of good gamer rage videos. There's one, well, yeah, I'm like, here, I'll if I can get a link, if I can find that video, I'll give a link to it. There's another one, well, more recent one for, yeah, Twitch streamer was Quinn69, does a lot of Path of Exile streams, and there's one I saw. Yeah, he was playing. Was it Chikiro? I forgot the name of it. Shadows Die Twice. You know, the From Software one. He was playing that, and then he just lost it, and then he basically broke the controller, like slamming it against the desk after that. Though. So yeah, Sekiro. Thank you. So yeah, feel free to post that like in the descriptions, or you can, if there's some really good ones, you can email me. There's a great one. I think it was Dance Dance Revolution where the guy was playing. He was playing it on a keyboard, or it might have been a Dance Dance Revolution clone. And he just kept getting more and more angry, and he ends up like smashing the wall and the monitor. And I think there's one that was staged, but it's a very good stage of like an angry dad coming back, where these kids are on his TV, and he told them, no, this is his TV. They do not use it, and he basically trashes the Xbox. Yeah, I'll try to have links to all these if I could find them. Yeah, so yeah, if you, I like the gamer rage ones that are funny. Sometimes, like it's more of an addiction thing, and then like they're kind of in tears and it's kind of sad. I don't really like those as much because I figure then okay, that's just this person has just legitimate problems. But I mean, not that the other angry ones don't have problems too, but sometimes they can be really funny. So I like the funny ones. But yeah, I don't have any like standout moments that I remember. I'm usually just swearing if something's really pissing me off. But I guess it does like hit me at the same level that it used to when I was younger. But let's see. Are you still looking into getting a VR upgrade? Yes, I would love to. And it's saying, is Pimax still your most likely candidate? Yes, but they pushed the 12K back even further. I think it's like maybe a year and a half out now. So I think they called it like maybe 2.5 years early, just getting my hopes up. They're asking, how often do I check in on the VR industry when you foresee yourself pulling the trigger on an upgrade? I don't check it as often now because the upgrade I want above everything else, like the one I have now is pretty decent, the Samsung Odyssey Plus, but the number one feature I want is a wider field of view. And so many of the new ones don't have that. It's like the same field of view or standard industry standard or less. Like I think for for non-Pimax headsets, Valve is still number one, the Valve Index. And I even considered getting that at one point, even though everything I've read suggests that would be kind of a side grade against the Samsung Odyssey Plus because some things are better, some things are worse. And it's not like a huge field of view difference. It's only a little bit. Like I want more immersion, and that's what would do it for me, would be more on the sides. Like I just feel like it would, I just know it would be better. And now I was even considering caving and getting a Pimax 8K, but I learned that you more or less need to have like the Valve Lighthouse stations for that. And while I wouldn't mind having that, I've read some reports where sometimes they have like this whine that they can be defective. And I'm thinking, geez, the thought of like a high-pitched whine going on while I do that would not be fun. But the thing is, it might even go beyond that because they use like some little rotating device in there, this tiny one that's inside there. It's possible it might be emitting a high-pitched frequency I can't hear. And from what I've heard, if humans, I think there's been some studies where if humans are exposed to like real high-pitched frequencies, even if they can't hear it, they start getting irritable after a while. Like, so it's like part of your brain is catching this, even if you're not consciously noticing it. And from what I've read, it's not even like it just activates while you're doing VR and then it's off the rest of the time. Like I was seeing a bunch of posts saying, no, you have to like physically unplug it to get it to like stop completely. And I'm thinking like, geez, that doesn't sound like, this sounds like more of a hassle than I want to deal with. I mean, if I thought nothing else was coming, I might take the plunge and do it, but it's like, man, I think the Pimax 12K is not going to need that with the base stations. So, and it could be these are just like 1% of the viewers I'm looking at, and the reality is 99% of it is fine. But yeah, but one person, the reason I mentioned the high-pitched frequencies is I saw one report of somebody saying after they got the Valve Index, their dog started becoming afraid of that room. And so he thought like, oh wow, maybe that's what's happening because the dog might hear that signal and think like, oh yikes, you know, I don't want to get near that. So I don't know, I'm kind of paranoid about the base stations. And like, that's a lot of money to throw in for something that might be like an overall worse experience than what I have right now. So I'm just trying to stick to the 3D theater type games at the moment and kind of go through as much of those as I can. So yeah, I mean, I guess there is the Xtel and the Star VR, but those are so expensive that, I mean, thousands of dollars. Well, I mean, the Pimax 12K is going to be pricey, but the Pimax 12K would have, if they can deliver it, it's going to have better specs than either of those and be less. So, yeah, it's, I'm just in a holding pattern. I do check news every once in a while. Probably the most interesting news, I think, are I think it's on roadtovr.com. I think they have this monthly column where they list all these existing games that have received like VR mods. So they basically like converted the game to work in VR. I'm thinking, awesome. That's what we need more of, you know. Okay, I should keep going. Let's see. Have you ever heard a retort so funny that you wanted to burst out laughing? Yes, and I've forgotten most of them, but I remembered another one the other day that did get me to laugh. It was from, I think it was from Deadpool 2, where in the movie, he's really depressed and he's trying to kill himself, but he's a mutant, so he can't. That's his special ability. And he jumps off this building, to try to kill himself, and it just goes splat, and he's just there, blood everywhere, lying in pain. And then this crowd's gathered around them. And then this woman says, I can't believe he's still alive. And then him on the ground is saying, I can't believe you left the house in that shirt, like, to her. And that just cracked me up because, like, I just, not only was it a good comeback, but it's like, just like, imagine being dissed by someone who just attempted suicide. That's gotta, like, punch a little harder. Yeah, dissed on your fashion by someone who just tried to kill himself. So it's, I love good comebacks. I guess I've just forgotten most of them. Maybe the chat will sometimes remember some more, but let's see. I think I'm gonna turn the fan on. I'm getting hot here. Let's see. Any plans on upgrading your PC to play some more recent games for Game Dungeon? Yeah, I'm definitely considering it. It may not necessarily lead to recent games for Game Dungeon necessarily, because I don't know. It just depends on, like, the vibe I'm getting from them. Unfortunately, I feel like the latest generation of video cards was kind of a mess on multiple fronts, because I think I think AMD had a problem where they had, like, a defective cooler and they were getting, like, these ridiculously hot hotspots. And NVIDIA had a problem where I did more research on this than I intended to, where the new, I think it's like HP 12V or 12V HP connectors that they're using for the power, like, they were melting some video cards. It was mostly the 4090. And from there, okay, that's like a whole other discussion. Well, okay, I'll go through it real quick. It made me paranoid because, as many pointed out, they're pumping more power through smaller cables, and that are more bunched together. And, like, there was a great expose somebody did on this. Oh, I forget. It's like Tech Power Up or something like that. Where they actually were able to simulate the card melting. And they found that if it was, like, partially connected in at, like, a side angle, then you could, like, melt it reliably. And but they also showed that there were defects in the connectors. They x-rayed them. So not all of them, but in some connectors, like somebody mailed in one that fried, they did find, like, impurities in it that might have made it a little more hair trigger. But the thing is, like, if you look at the comments to that, everybody just says up and down, human error, human error, human error. Well, it's like, no, he just showed it's possible, even if you did everything right, to still have the card melt. And there was another report on, like, a reputable site. It might have been Gamers Nexus. I forget the name. The guy, the host, has long hair, like me, so I'm sure you can probably figure out who it was. Gamers Nexus sounds right. But the impression I got was my walk away impression from that video was that if you're completely sure that you plug it in correctly, which it apparently is easy to do incorrectly, then the odds of your card or the connector melting are very low. However, when I get video cards, I get them for the long haul. I mean, my current card's like 5.5 years old. So I'm pretty sure you could guarantee it's not going to melt in the next few months, but can you guarantee that for the next 5 years? And I've read reports that like one of the cards melted that the person had it for like 6 months. So and everybody just piles on saying user error. Well, maybe. I saw one comment saying, thermal expansion is a thing. So you could have plugged it in correctly, and then maybe over time it kind of worked itself loose. Or anyway, my walk away from this was this made me completely paranoid about some of the newer cards. I think the lower ends of them are they went back to the regular. I forget the name of the connectors, but like the connector almost every video card's using until now that are thicker cables that are kind of proven. But the other thing I was going to say is, unfortunately, I think I'm getting kind of locked into NVIDIA over AMD because I think right now, if you're just caring about games, AMD is the better bang for the buck. And I don't really care about ray tracing performance, but I do care about AI. Like I've definitely, and a lot of the AI programs I've seen use CUDA. So it's like, and I think AMD even made a statement saying they're not gonna be including like special AI cores for it for the foreseeable future. I'm thinking, oh man, that sucks because I might the other reason I kind of want NVIDIA is for older games, they tend to have better anti-aliasing compatibility if you're forcing it through the drivers. But that's something I plan to look into more of. But I don't like being locked into NVIDIA because, but man, I am going to want more AI stuff. So, yeah, what, another thing that could win me over is if we go back to standalone cards, where if, AI is taking off so much that they just start becoming a standalone card you plug into or something like that. Then I could have one card for 3D graphics and then the other card for AI stuff. I'd be down for that. So, yeah. So yeah, I'll probably make the plunge at some point. Although someone just sent me a 1080 Ti, so that's going to be an upgrade from what I have. Fan from Switzerland. It took forever to come in through the customs, but I'll check that out. Yeah, so I'll upgrade at some point, but I've just things have been upside down since the pandemic, and both AMD and NVIDIA managed to make me paranoid about the latest generation. So, okay, someone's asking if I've seen Disco Elysium. Yeah, I know of it, and actually, I almost considered putting it in my most anticipated games earlier, but didn't quite. The aesthetics of it didn't quite grab me, but it keeps getting mentioned. I'll have to play through it at some point, I think. And as the reply underneath this says, Planescape Torment comes first. I'm going to finish that one first because, if I'm playing a third-person narrative-heavy game, I'm more interested in Planescape Torment's world than Disco Elysium's. But I think I'll have to just because it gets brought up so many times. Oh yeah, this is one I meant to think about more. If time and money are not an issue, what is an ideal vacation for you? Well, I think first I'd like to just have another few days where I'm like just playing games or watching movies to have more free time for that because I definitely have a backlog of stuff I want to get through. But for actual vacation, I mean, I don't know if what an ideal. Well, one, I guess I love amusement parks, so I'd love to be able to visit more of them or do something like paintball or, well, actually, since I'm in Europe, I'd love to be able to visit like the Alps, and in some places they have these like alpine rides where it's just like this rail going all the way down some of those mountains. It just looks awesome when I see it. I guess if we're talking more of like a fantasy vacation, something that kind of gives you, the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love the idea of just kind of going deep into the jungle or the forest and like discovering like a temple or something like that. But that would be more of like a fantasy type vacation. But I think I would enjoy something like that a lot. going on some sort of wilderness adventure experience type thing, you know. But yeah, so or zip lining, that would be a lot of fun. So yeah, I guess it's kind of aligning something that could be an adventure or just kind of thrill rides would both be kind of way up there for me for what I would want to do for a vacation. Somebody's saying, oh yeah, apparently one of the previous chats, somebody kept asking me something about Baltimore, and I kept missing it. Because now somebody's saying, how about somewhere like Baltimore? Well, I've visited Baltimore, but I mean, Baltimore is kind of a mix. It's been forever since I've been there, but it's kind of a mix because there's some parts that are like very poor and kind of have been gutted. That's just kind of sad more than anything else, and it could use help. But then I remember the part I visited, I think was like the Bay Area, which is pretty nice, but that's just kind of an atmosphere thing. If we're talking dream vacation, I mean, maybe Venice would be more interesting if you want to go to something that's like seaside or that sort of thing. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, kind of thrill rides or amusement park. Well, the other thing I like, besides just thrill rides, the other thing I like about amusement. Okay, I've got another entry. Omega Mart. If you here, I'll put that in the description. Omega Mart is this sort of surreal Adult Swim style grocery. They made a bunch of videos, but the thing is, it's also a real exhibit. I think it's in Las Vegas. And I have like almost no interest in going to Las Vegas normally, but that would give me a reason to want to go. I could spend hours there. It's like a surreal, it's like this kind of surreal comedy grocery store that is just, it's so imaginative. I love that. But yeah, what I was going to say is the other aspect I like about amusement parks, besides the rides, are just sort of are just trying to kind of recreate the feel of like you're in this other world. You know, that's kind of fun and colorful and imaginative, and I love stuff like that. So there could be there's some other exhibits of things I don't know about like that, but yeah, that's the sort of thing I love. So that's why it kind of comes together nicely for me in most amusement parks, where you have the rides and you have the theme they're going for, or, you know, cool looking sculptures and things like that. So music playing. So yeah. I mean, part of me, you know, I almost have a theory that, yeah, maybe this would be something to talk about in one of the interviews. I almost feel like maybe almost everyone has never grown up in different ways. Like, so some people, like, they maybe never hit a certain level of emotional maturity, or some people never, like, struggle with, like, a certain type of reasoning that people do as kids. And I think for me, like I never grew up as far as, like, enjoying amusement parks or stuff like that. Like, cause, yeah, I don't get the feeling like, oh, I've outgrown that. It's like, no, this would be, I love this. Like, why would I not want to do this? Okay. Oh, they're asking, how do I know the bulk of my audience is in the USA? I haven't checked it in a long time, but I've checked the YouTube stats, and it shows that most of the viewers do come from USA. I haven't checked lately. I can maybe check for next time, but you don't want me multitasking while I'm doing this. So, oh, and I just remembered, somebody emailed me a great video about AI that gets more to the point of what we can expect from it than like any other I've seen. And it was actually in an aviation video. Like, it was like an aviation channel where they were worried about AI taking pilot jobs, and they brought in an AI expert to talk about it. And he more or less mirrors what I thought. Actually, maybe I can find that link really quick. Yeah, okay. So here's the video. I'll put this in the description also. But again, well, I would actually be even more generous than this guy is, because he was saying like the scenario where, what I know of it, the sort of Sully maneuver, where I forget the name of the movie, where Tom Hanks played a real life pilot, uh, Captain Sully, where he did this maneuver where he realized there was a problem with the plane, and realized that he wasn't going to be able to get back to the airfield in time, or with the engines out or something. So he managed to like land it in like the New York River or something like that. And this guy was saying an AI can never figure that out. And I was thinking, if you gave it enough variables to look at, I bet an AI can maybe recommend that strategy under a crisis. Or yeah, maybe the Hudson River. So the AI expert was saying no, it wouldn't be able to do that. I think it would be capable of figuring that out, but it would have to be a good AI. So I'm a little more generous than this guy was, but I agree with him on the other stuff he said and the fundamentals. So, let's see, but I lost track of the original question. But yeah, so I just remembered I meant to show that earlier. See, that's how my train of thought works. Is I saw this question and I realized if I try to multitask, this is going to like wreck the video chat, because I'm just going to be bringing up the wrong window, getting distracted, trying to, not thinking as focused. And that thought led me to something I meant to do earlier, which involved multitasking, which was pull up this video, which I meant to mention earlier to the AI. So when it seems like I'm just jumping around just randomly with my thoughts, that's what's actually going on. There really is a train of thought there. It's just that it happens in ways that aren't obvious at all. So, let's see. Have you ever tried the game Eastern Mind? I think I heard of that one, but no, I haven't done that one. So sometimes these like weird ones, I don't know. It depends. I can look into it. Okay, I might start getting pickier already just because we're asking, we've had 2 have you played this game questions. And so I figure those are like the most common ones. So I'm going to get pickier now. Oh, this is a good question. I was busier this week. I didn't get to look as many as I meant. They're saying in Zombie Trailer Park, both you and Future, you made a good point that there should be more games with rednecks as main protagonists. Yeah. That was one of my favorite aspects of StarCraft 2. Any other suggestions for who or what we should see more of in video games? This is a great question, and I forgot the answer to it. Maybe I should like make a note of think about this so I can like answer it, give you a better answer next time, because this had several votes. Maybe the chat has something. Somebody's saying AI created a Mountain Dew advertisement. I can maybe look into that. I saw the pizza one that they made that has sufficient creep factor to it. And I also saw the Harry Potter Balenciaga one. That one's entertaining. Yeah, the part that cracked me up is you'll soon find there's some fashion is better than others, Potter, from Malfoy. Let's see. Yeah, that stuff's exploding with like the AI derived stuff. Let's see. Oh man, I apologize. I don't have a good answer ready for that. For sure, we could have more interesting protagonists. I mean, well, I was kind of thinking I like Joey as protagonist in Arcade America, where this is just a guy running a band and he seems tired, he's overweight, but has a lot of hustle. I like characters like that, that they have, no matter, or actually I like in Leisure Suit Larry, magna cum laude, he's like, he's a real short character. I think he might have had a bit of a pot belly. He may or may not have been balding in that one, But the point is, he is bringing his A game. Like he is trying so hard in this, and like I can only respect that. You know, that's yeah. So I like that in games when you have a character that has like things working against them, but they're not letting that dissuade them. Um, let's see I'm trying to think the because I was thinking another. Not the same thing. He's not really like giving his all effort, but like Day of the Tentacle had some good protagonists. I didn't really care for Bernard that much, but I liked Hoagie and I liked Laverne. Yeah. Hoagie was kind of like an overweight, like metalhead that was just kind of chill most of the time. He was a good character, and Laverne was a neurotic, kind of like maybe psycho girl that's into biology. It just kind of has this kind of it comes across a little bit like a tweaker, you know. So yeah, she was a fun character. So yeah, there's all kinds of potential for like for more interesting protagonists in games. Like, because like I mean, my attitude on it is there's lots of talk about like whether like a protagonist is like white or black or another race or like what gender they are. It's like I'm less interested in that. I'm more interested in like how entertaining is their personality or their situation and that sort of thing. Because I kind of don't care about the protagonist if like one's a man or a woman or white or black or Asian and they're all kind of equally boring. Well then, okay. I mean, I guess that appeals more to some demographics, but you know, if one of them's like hallucinating or another one's like a perpetual drunk, yeah, that's another good. There's been a few of those. I might even do a game dungeon on one of them. But yeah, alcoholic characters or just something that's funny or this prevents like unique perspectives and challenges for the player in a way that's like entertaining. That can be fun. Yeah, there was one. Oh, geez. I had it, but then I lost it. Yeah, well, I forget. But yeah, somebody's saying Bozo's Night Out, too. Exactly. I forgot about Bozo's Night Out. Yeah. I like it when it's more fun. I'm not really into the games where the character has like some sort of handicap or mental illness or really tragic situation. So yeah, I mean, I guess it can be interesting from a gameplay perspective that, you know, you realize life is harder from that. But man, that can be a real bummer. I'd rather have it where it's just kind of funny, you know, that from the experience. Somebody's saying, "Oh, I'm gonna love Disco Elysium." All right, yeah. Like I'm more. I like the caustic drunk more, you know, rather than where they're using it just to have no inhibitions or stuff like that. Yeah, so Sam and Max. Yeah, I still need to play the Telltale ones, but for sure, I played Sam and Max Hit the Road, and I've read the Sam and Max comics. Sam and Max is awesome. Like and it's full of interesting characters too. But man, I had one on the tip of my tongue that was like, yeah. Well, I haven't played Postal 4, but like the Postal Dude is another good example where this is a character that's just he's at the edge of cracking, you know, and it's kind of and has a dark sense of humor. So, yeah, I'm all for thinking outside the box with protagonists, but my main metric is it entertaining, you know? I mean, and that doesn't work for every game because some games you don't want a lot of comedy. In which case, I mean, it can vary. I'm trying to think of. You can still have them like have an edge to them with their personality in different ways that you know it can kind of sometimes make them more cool or yeah, like in different. Oh yeah, like with. Well, it's not a game, but I'm thinking. Again, I love the movie Roadhouse, where the protagonist in that is just, he's a martial arts badass, but he has a very kind of calm and polite nature about it. He almost has like this Zen mentality to them. But it's like when he has to get pushed to levels that he doesn't hold back a thing. And I really like characters like that, where there's so many good quotes in that movie where she's asking like if he won a fight that he was in, and he says, "No one ever really wins a fight." You know, he kind of has this attitude, or the book Musashi has a thing like that, where this is a character where they're kind of trying. It's this kind of real warrior type character, but they're kind of seeking this kind of enlightenment, and they're not actively seeking fights and seeing fighting as something to be avoided. But if they're actually drawn into it, then they're just like an utter master at it that you're just like, whoa, you know? So you can have, that's another fun kind of character trope, I guess, you know, the sort of the enlightened warrior who's not looking for a fight. Yeah, somebody's mentioning Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan has a character like that many times where he's just kind of, he's not looking for a fight, but the fights find him. Yeah, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, so I'll have to, if I think of any other good answers about like, you know, underutilized protagonists, I'll think of it. But those are a few good ones. Okay. Oh yeah, someone's asking, Ross, what happened if you found yourself legally responsible for a child? Would you stop making videos? What would your parenting style be? That's one of those things I don't even want to think about. I'm sure I would be a competent parent, but I don't think I would enjoy it, and I would feel kind of oppressed by it, and it would probably just weigh down on me heavily. Not because like I would blame the kid for it. It's just that would be a responsibility that I don't want, but I would feel like I have to do it, you know, and it would come at the cost of many other ambitions and things I want to do in my life. And I say I think I would be competent because when I was visiting my uncle, who has 2 kids, him and his wife, they're not really natural parents. I think they kind of got in over their heads on it, where the kids didn't have a lot of discipline. And we were having dinner with them, and they were just getting real rambunctious and rude. And I just stepped in and said, hey, you know, like, it's just like, you know, I forget exactly what I said, but I just let them know immediately that, like, you know, this isn't how adults behave. You know, this isn't polite to other people. You should sit down and try your best to, you know, eat. And like the kids were just like, whoa, you know, that like I stepped in, and my uncle and mother would kind of look at me like, oh, okay, thank you, you know, kind of like, because so I mean, I have instincts that, like, you know, you gotta cut the crap for a lot of things, but that's not really. I don't really enjoy being like that, you know. I kind of call that drill sergeant mode. I absolutely have that ability, and I remember. Well, I mean, it was like that. I remember when we moved last time. Yeah, I think my wife said I was almost like a different person because we were in a situation where we had a whole lot of work to do, and all the arrangements were made with like the movers coming at a certain time. And so I realized the only way we're going to get through this is if we're just really effective and efficient about what we're doing. So I just got like, okay, now we need to do this. Okay, do this here. So I wasn't mean to her, but I kept focusing. It's like, okay, but we can't focus on this now. We need to do this. And I was just like, just laser focused on just getting it all done. So, I mean, I have that in me, but I don't really enjoy being like that. So, and I feel like with a kid, it would be a whole lot of that you have to, you know, help them understand that, you know, you need to do this, and, you know, some behavior is appropriate, other isn't. Plus, there's so many things you have to teach them, too. And that would just, you know, I'd have to be thinking, oh, well, have I taught them this, or do they need to learn about this? And it would just wear me down. Like I could do it, but I wouldn't want to. So And it's, yeah, in fact, I kind of have the attitude that I feel like, especially with the population as high as it is, I feel like the only people who should have kids are people who are crazy about the idea of having kids. Like, this is their thing. They're going to love it. Playing with the kid, you know, teaching them things. Like, that's who kids need as parents, you know. A lot of people can get kind of roped into it or get in over their head, whereas I feel like, I almost feel like anyone who wants to have a kid should maybe do a little bit of, maybe serve some time doing babysitting or helping with daycare or something like that, just to get a taste of what they're getting signing up for. So, let's see. The chat's off on something else. Looks like you're talking about Rey from Star Wars. That's another example. I thought Rey was pretty generic. I mean, yeah, like didn't really. I mean, compare Rey to Princess Leia. Princess Leia has a ton of personality. If we're talking about Star Wars, so whereas Rey just felt generic to me. So it's. Let's see. Lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah. Picking questions. Oh, someone's saying if I've gotten to any more awesome MMO stories that intrigue you. Well, I mentioned one previously about that guy who was in some like custom role-playing server where he was using like Earth Force. No, he was using unarmed combat, and he ended up. But there's a lot more. I still need to go through them. That's why I said I realized I might regret doing this, but you know I had to give it a shot. But no, I'm looking forward to catching up on more emails with that. Yeah, when I say there's a 99% chance I've seen your email, a lot of the birthday emails are a bit of an exception when I made that birthday video. Because I was kind of saving them for later. I've been going through them slowly, but I'll get through them. And if there's like a collection of great ones, I'll make another video on it, and people can send me even more ones because, you know, I like really good MMO stories. They can be quite entertaining. So I'm saying they watched the movie The Arrival. The main character played by Charlie Sheen kind of reminded me of your version of Gordon Freeman. I remember. I've seen that movie, but my memory is really hazy on it. I remember him looking like Gordon Freeman. I think he had like the goatee and the glasses and that. I remember the movie just kind of being so-so. I can say it wasn't modeled off of them, but I mean, I barely remember it. I mean, I remember him like, what I remember is him like kind of hiding out in a hotel, and then like he goes into some facility towards the end, like on an elevator, and uncovers some conspiracy or something. And that's about it. And I remember sort of what he looks like. I didn't have any exact inspirations for Freeman that I remember. It's more like I was just trying to put myself in the shoes, and I was thinking, okay, if I was an asshole or just paranoid or an egomaniac, like what would I say? And I'm sort of doing that. And some things are what I think too. Yeah, I think I've said before about 15% of Freeman is me, and then the rest I'm just trying to think like, okay, if I was just a real jackass, what would I say? Or if I wanted to like insult somebody to try to get them to throw a punch at me, what would I say? Stuff like that. So I'm just thinking of things like that, or if my mind wanders, then I put that in there, that sort of thing. So if I am copying another character, it's not conscious. Oh yeah, well I'll ask the chat this one. What is the worst sin a game can commit, aside from being tied to a central server? So yeah, obviously with me, it's destroying your own game. You know, that nothing tops that. But beyond that, it's hard to say. I guess. I mean, one candidate would be which we mostly don't see much of now, what would be the Sierra-style traps, where you can screw yourself in the game and you have no idea you've done that and you don't find out until much later. Yes, so I'm saying require internet for single player. No, I'm saying require internet once support ends. That's what that would be my answer. I mean, why should multiplayer be an exception? What, you can't play an arena shooter with friends if you still want to play the game? I guarantee you there are people playing Unreal Tournament 2004 or just original right now, and they delisted that game. So, somebody's saying no FOV slider in first-person perspective. Yeah, that's up there. That one's up there, but to me that's like a specific kind of genre, so that doesn't always apply to all kinds of games. Not being able to remap controls is a bit up there. However, if you can't do that on PC, at least you can bust out auto hotkey and remap them that way, even though it's kind of a hassle. I had one I was thinking of, but well, yeah, okay, I have one. But this is it's not. Some people want this. The game feeling like work. Like if this feels like a job, and it's like, because sometimes a grind can be fun. You know, I love the grind in Dungeon Siege, or that there's some other. Sometimes the grind is just an excuse to play more of the gameplay you've already gotten a lot of, but you like it. So, but there's other things. It's just, this feels like work. Like this is like, there's a lot of games where there's some objective, or maybe it's like a special item, or you get to the next chapter in the game or something, where you really want to get to that other part. Because say this special item is going to open up the gameplay for you and just make the game a lot more fun. Or you're going to get to the next chapter, and that's going to be a lot of, and you're really interested where the story goes. Or you know this is like a temporary segment. But that one section is just, it's not fun, and it feels like work. And that's a much more subjective thing. And some people who play sim games might want that kind of work feeling because they want the added realism of it. And like, I really don't like that in the game, but I guess it's a little more of a risk in these games that do a lot of different things rather than ones that only have like one or two types of gameplay styles. So, okay, let's see. Oh yeah, okay, there's talking about the FOV having an advantage for certain players. Well, yeah, and somebody made a point. If everyone has the slider, there is no advantage. And yeah, I think that's accurate because, you know, ultra wide can give you advantage by seeing things on the side, but if you could then just a giant screen would give you the same advantage if you have the same level of FOV slider. So yeah, that's true. But your average person is going to be on a 16:9 screen. So that'll look more distorted on a 16:9. But again, if you just got a big screen, you could have all the advantages of ultra wide if you have like a full FOV slider. Let's see. So I'm not sure if they're saying this about me or somebody else. They're saying, reminds me of McAfee in a way. Thanks. I mean, McAfee is someone I felt like kind of, I don't think I'm like, I think McAfee is much more proactive about many things than I am, and much more live for the moment than I am. But I totally respect McAfee in the sense that, you know how a lot of rich people just seems like all they do is just hoard their money and use it to try to make more money? McAfee did not do that. I think he almost went broke from partying. So he strikes me as someone who led a very interesting life and used his money, you know. So, and I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but he certainly had ideals and principles he adhered to. So, I mean, I respect that. So yeah, no, I mean, I've heard John McAfee called the actual most interesting man in the world, or the real most interesting man in the world. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm if everybody has access to the FOV slider, then it's not necessarily an advantage, because if your FOV is way up, you do see more things on the side, but it's harder to aim in front of you because your image in front of you is smaller. So it's so the people who it kind of depends on your play style. Like if maximum awareness of the enemy is paramount, then yeah, the FOV is going to be higher. Whereas if aim is extremely important, then you might want it a little lower, because then that's going to take up more of your screen that makes it easier to pull off the shot or something like that. I had the thought, then lost it again. Yeah, with the FOV slider. No, I lost it. Maybe it'll come back. That's okay. It was a more expendable thought. Some thoughts, you know, when I forget things, I actually remember my emotional importance of them. So I remember if this was like an important thing to say, or if that was just kind of a throwaway thought. So I remember that aspect of it. This was more throwaway, so I do not evoke McAfee. Okay, well, I've seen a few videos where it's my favorite of his is how to uninstall McAfee antivirus. He just leaned into the absurdity of it. So let's see. But yeah, others. Okay, worst sin is shrinking the game world and stifling the imagination. The opposite of what games like Half-Life 2 do. Well, I mean, it depends on the kind of game. I mean, what came to mind? Donkey Kong. That's a pretty, like, kind of contained game. What a lot of people enjoy it, or something like Tetris, or when you're talking about like of games cover such a wide range. I mean, some games, yeah, you don't want to limit the imagination. Others, some people enjoy the mastery of finding all the combinations and strategies within this contained play area. I mean, if your chess is like that, so whereas I agree, I tend to prefer the games that kind of spark the imagination more. But I mean, some games are just really fun for the gameplay, and with those, it's kind of okay if it's kind of limited, or it becomes too overwhelming if you're kind of expanding on it too much. It can water down the strengths even. So there was one other thing I thought that, like, no, I think that was it. Having the game feel like work, so. But even then, sometimes that's what people want. If it's a sim, or they want the tedium because that extra realism enhances the experience for them, because then it feels more real for the player. I can respect that up to a point. Like some shooters, like like let's say you reload, you don't magically refill your magazine, or you have much more, like if you've been running, then your sight's gonna be bobbing up and down more because you're breathing heavily, that sort of thing. Or I can, if I like the rest of it in the theme, I can enjoy those kinds of games. Like I might eventually play that UFO deals expansion for Arma, because then it's still kind of sci-fi for me, but I'm going to be having more realistic mechanics. Or with car games, some like to go for like absolute realism for the car mechanics. I'm all right with that. So. Okay, should do some more. Okay, The Arrival. They're saying, I'd like to know how you feel about the architecture, art design, thematics of FromSoft games, specifically Elden Ring. I haven't played Elden Ring yet. I have played Dark Souls 1 and 2, though. I thought the architecture and the layout was very cool, actually. Maybe more for Dark Souls 1. Where it kind of did, it had a real, some parts of it had a real three-dimensional aspect to them where height and depth come into play, and they would kind of loop back into themselves. And it was like kind of like almost like a cool knot, you know. And the art design was really cool too. I mean, lots of little touches and the kind of grim and dark fantasy aspect of it. But I'm working my way up to Elden Ring because I figure a lot of people say like Elden Ring is amazing. So I figure, well, if it's so amazing, I should probably play Dark Souls 3 first. And there's a very high percentage I will use cheats on that. Yeah, I use cheats for Dark Souls 1 and 2. No regrets. Like, it's just... My life is too short for... And I want to get through too many games for just playing those kinds of games legit. I mean, again, if I really enjoyed the gameplay from playing it legit, I would do it anyway. But I don't really, so... in fact, somebody made a first-person shooter mod for Dark Souls 3, which I'm going to have to check in. Well, I'm going to have to look into. Maybe I'll play it from first person, but... No, I mean, the world is great on it. I've been trying to stay in the dark mostly about Elden Ring, but from what I've heard about it, it sounds like they put a whole lot of like effort into like creating a kind of multi-layered world that kind of, there's all sorts of stuff in it. So if I might compare it. Okay, the chat, you can tell me if I'm warm or cold here. What it sounds like to me is they made like, you know, a Dark Souls-ish type game that's utterly enormous, where they're using kind of the same sort of environment design that something like Gothic does. Because if you look at the layout of Gothic, that has a lot going for it, especially like 1 and 2. So if you've played Elden Ring and you've played Gothic, so this is like Gothic times 50 or something like that with the world. That would be my blind guess going in. So okay, somebody says wrong. Someone says more like Skyrim. Okay, somebody says not quite as detailed. Okay, so maybe I'm going in with higher standards then. Maybe my standards are too high for Elden Ring. So let's see. Well, somebody's saying they thought it was more like Skyrim. Well, my understanding is they have a lot more variety than Skyrim, and it's kind of feels like it's its own unique thing when you go in different directions. At least that's okay. We have another person saying maybe more like Elder Scrolls. Okay, because I feel like the Bethesda stuff feels a little different. Like it's you do kind of see the copy paste stuff more, and it's like each place doesn't feel as unique, and I don't know. Okay, well, I'm sure the chat will weigh in more on that. It's not as wooden as Elder Scrolls games. Good. Elder Scrolls games do feel kind of wooden to me. Oh, so I'm saying that no, they don't know. Okay. I'm sure we'll get lots of commentary setting me straight. I'll play it eventually, but okay, more questions. Ross, any chance of you ever collaborating with another YouTuber? Sure, we might maybe even next time. You know, depending on what kind of interview / discussion events we get. It doesn't necessarily have to be an interview. It could just be, again, you can kind of pitch me like, what would you want to talk to me about? Maybe some topics you'd want to get into, a few specifics, and I'll see if like, yeah, I think that could be interesting, and kind of get an idea of what you're like, that sort of thing. So, but I mean, we could do crossover video too. But again, that's the sort of thing I'm not really seeking out. I did seek out Tom for Sonic because he wrote that fanfic not fanfic, the intentionally, no, I guess it was technically a fanfic. The Knackles or one. So I thought like, oh, that'd be great to get him in, just like to actually narrate his own story, like as like a guest star thing that I wanted to work into the Sonic episode. So I did seek Tom out for that, but so yeah, if there was like a real specific reason I wanted them, a YouTuber to appear, I would seek him out. But otherwise, I figure other YouTubers are probably pretty busy. You know, I don't want to put more on their plate. Yeah, well, Lazy Game Reviews. That was another person I've reached out for because I got him to kind of weigh in on the validity of, yeah, the anachronism of the equipment and A New Beginning. Because I thought, yeah, let's have him say something. Like he knows more about period hardware than I do. So it's so yeah, if I have a real specific purpose I want to bring him on for, then I do that. But otherwise they can come to me and maybe we can work something out. It's okay. I'm gonna start skipping some more questions there. Somebody's saying they think piracy is the ultimate solution for, you know, preservation. It sounds like, and they're kind of getting more on like the talking about concept of intellectual property. This was not really a question, just kind of a state topic to bring up. Yeah, I mean, well, no, I don't think it's the ultimate solution because that's the whole thing about games as a service. Piracy generally doesn't protect against that. A lot of these games you can't pirate, or it's like, you know, the odds are incredibly against you to come up with a server emulator and reverse engineer it. So, however, I am more optimistic on AI. Like, the more I'm seeing being done, I'm convinced at some point, I think the dream software is going to happen where you can just feed it footage from a game and it'll recreate this map. And then you can just punt that over to Unreal or Unity. And then you're running around in that map and it's pretty close to how it actually looks. I mean, it's not, yeah, I was thinking AI is great for anything where you don't need 100% accuracy. You know, if you have to have 100% accuracy, AI is still pretty risky. But if 95 to 99% will do, then yeah, it opens up a lot of potential. Yeah, something I didn't mention on that chart is I left out like all the possible benefits to AI, which are very, very numerous. So, any more driving games coming to Game Dungeon? Yeah, probably at some point. That's not what's next, though. I had one where I wasn't sure, but it's definitely emerging as, yes, this is very game. The next game I'm going to do, I'm worried it might get too long because I'm thinking, oh, wow, there's a lot to say here. So we'll see. I'll try to keep it kind of condensed, but we'll see what happens. Because if I want to go off on something, I'm going to do it. Oh yeah, they're saying, how do you feel about games as of recent being less optimized with textures and general graphical performance and just general forcing people to get top of the line hardware because they simply decided to make a game like 100 gigabytes for a laugh? Well, you don't need top of the line hardware if your game's 100 gigabytes. I'll say that. You can go very cheap if that's your main obstacle, like storage. Your load times will be longer, but yeah, and even with SSDs, they're getting, well, I guess it depends how many 100 gigabyte games you want, but yeah, actually the file size, I'm actually more sympathetic to that one because I tend to take a innocent until proven guilty approach on file size because, you know, as the game graphics get better and better and more lifelike, that's where your file size is exploding from. Those textures, yeah, they basically quadruple because, you know, if you double each axis, So if you double the sharpness, that's 4 times the space, really, because, you're going in each direction. So, yeah, I mean, the more realistic companies want graphics, then it's just going to balloon up there. And yeah, it does get kind of insane, I think, but I mean, it's a mixed bag. I think a lot of gamers would be okay if they're not going for maximum fidelity, but there's some gamers that really want that, and it can look cool. Yeah, if you have a big budget studio, they're going the distance and just putting all these details into the graphics. I mean, I won't, I won't say I'm above that. It can look really nice. It's just that if it doesn't have all that, but it has a whole lot of other stuff going for it, or textures are muddier, I'm still gonna like the game 95% as much, But actually, now it's yeah, I was thinking one of the few examples I know of that I feel like, yeah, this is them getting kind of lazy or just kind of. I think it was Titanfall, where like the bulk of the size came from uncompressed wave files, and they had the multilingual stuff for all of them. So they're not compressing the dialogue at all. And it's like, do we really need yeah, there weren't. I think it had to do with the source engine, how it worked better with wave files, so it just ballooned the size. But it sounded like there was just no optimization at all with that, to the point where the audio was taking up more space than the textures. And if you're doing that, that's like, come on, it's. I think most people are okay with some compression of the audio if it means like a 10-to-1 file savings, or if they might really want the music, in which case you can usually have a separate soundtrack where it's lossless. So, I mean, even then you have a lossless, like FLAC, but that might get trickier with game engines. Now, as for performance, I'm much more sympathetic to that, because on one hand, better graphics, you're going to have a correlation between needing more demanding hardware. But on the other hand, sometimes they're just not even trying. And I think that kind of shows more with big budget games too. Because actually one of the more recent examples I saw of very bad optimization was that game Broken Reality. And this game has like kind of an intentional 90s look to it. So we are not weighing down the computer with, polygons and you can see the hair on their faces or something like that. We're talking maybe Half-Life 1 level graphics, just more detail in terms of like fidelity. So something around there. And there were some levels of that just kind of chugged. I think like the last level was chugging. And I think that's just because they probably had no occlusion culling, where, it's not rendering what you don't see. And so that one was a case of poor optimization, but that was a much more indie game. That wasn't like some big studio, where somebody's whole job is just to optimize the code for the game. And I think what we're seeing is, I've said before how I see new games as just late betas. And I just assume they have problems now. And I think that's just kind of getting proven more and more true. Cyberpunk was a big, notable example of that. But actually, I think just recently a friend of mine was telling me the other day, he was playing the new Harry Potter game. And that one, he showed like this new patch note list of it that just dropped like a week or two ago. And he showed like one page, and there was like 50 to 100 changes on it. And it says this is one page of 3. So this is months after that game come out, and they're fixing hundreds of bugs. To me, that sounds like, okay, so this is a beta. Like that's what that says to me. So yeah, just wait. I mean, I mean, as long as people keep buying it, they'll keep pushing the envelope, you know. I mean, I guess we were hoping Cyberpunk would cause more of a chilling effect that like, oh, hey, maybe our game should not have lots and lots of problems on launch, but hasn't happened yet. So things are, I'm just glad companies keep trying to fix it after it launches because I'm paranoid one day the companies are just going to try to say, hey, you know what? We've already got the sales. We're just not going to try and fix this game after like 2 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. And just, you've got what you've got. We've got the bulk of our sales, whatever. We made the money, we're done. I'm worried that might happen. So far, that doesn't seem to be the case. So far, if you play a game like a year later, you're probably getting a much more polished experience with like patches and bug fixes and stuff like that. But that could end, you know. I don't, as long as they keep getting the sales, I don't see why they might not stop doing that. So, you know, okay, somebody's saying this is the greatest sin games commit right here. Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. Releasing your beta game as 1.0, and almost so many games do that now. So, yeah, somebody's saying unless your game is Anthem. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. I wouldn't rule it. I hope it doesn't happen, and I don't see it as a guarantee, but I sure see it as possible. Okay. Recently, there was an event called Creator Clash where a bunch of internet personalities faced off in exhibition boxing matches with all the proceeds going to charity. Is this something you would ever take part of if you were asked? Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, it depends on the competition. If I didn't really enjoy doing it, then, I mean, it'd feel more of an obligation. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not really a boxer, but maybe they can match me up with somebody who would probably be I would hope for something that's like we're in a similar class, you know, similar weight, and don't have a lot of experience boxing or something like that. But yeah, that could be fun. It just depends on what it is. Let's see. I'm skipping a few more questions that either sort of got answered. Oh yeah, do you think that quantum computing will live up to its full potential in regards to public utilization within the next 15, 20 years? I have no idea. I think I saw before a researcher on it saying something like, it's one of these things that we might make a breakthrough or we might never. I think the biggest problem is like they're very noisy, which means that there's gonna be like a lot of interference. Because, you know, we tend to think of computers like, I mean, just regular computers as like, you know, 1 or 0. It's all or nothing. But the thing is, once you start getting tinier and tinier and tinier, things can interfere with that. And you need like error correction to ensure you're not getting like accidental 1s and 0s. And that's kind of paramount for computing, to, you know, have your processing be accurate. And quantum computing, my understanding of it is it's a whole other level of noise that they have to deal with. So it's, yeah, you don't, what you really don't want in computing is false reporting, you know, where you told it 2 plus 2, you're asking it what is 2 plus 2, but what the computer thought you said is what's 2 plus 8, you know, and then it spits that back as a result. And, but see, that, at least that's a question you know they got it wrong. Whereas if it's asking like, what is 5,386 divided by 271, yeah, you might not know that it's giving you the wrong answer. So it's, yeah, that's the hurdle as I understand it. Yeah, so who knows? I mean, I think if quantum computers do get, yeah, that chart I gave, that does not apply to quantum computers. Quantum computers, if like they got to a similar level as modern, geez, even older computers, that could be a game changer. Who know? Yeah, that could like. My understanding is that could probably end almost all encryption we use now. In which case, that would be a pretty chaotic situation, though we could probably adapt to it. But yeah, I have no idea with quantum computing. But maybe we're close to our limit, or maybe we're away from a breakthrough. Who knows? You know, I think that's. But see, that's an example. See, because I just realized somebody's going to call me on this. The reason I feel that way about quantum computing and not superintelligence is because my understanding is we have a clear problem we need to fix in order to progress further, and that's how noisy the signal is. So if we can find a way to clean up the noise, well, then that opens up a lot of possibilities with quantum computers. Whereas with AI, it's like our clear problem to fix is make it conscious. Well, how the hell would we even do that? Like, do we even know what conscious is? Okay, or something similar to consciousness. It's like we're having trouble defining our objective even. Like, whereas quantum computer, no, we have an objective. It needs to be cleaner signal, you know, and work at room temperature or something like that. So we can define that. We may not be able to get there, but we can at least define where we're going, you know. So, somebody just asked, wait, why does an AI need to be conscious to be useful? It does not. The AI is already very useful, and I am super looking forward to how it becomes more useful. And no, and that's not true either. Somebody's saying not to be useful, to be dangerous. No, AI can be dangerous. Just, I list that all in my chart. That's why I put some thought in this chart that I made, guys. But what AI would need to be conscious in order to, for many specific kinds of risks to emerge. If an AI isn't conscious or super intelligent, then the risks it poses are much more limited. Whereas if it is super intelligent or conscious, then that opens up many more doors for risks. And I tried to lay it all out in that chart. That's the distinction. And no, to be useful, AI is awesome. I am super optimistic about our potential uses of AI. Like, yeah, so that, and I hope I'm not letting, and just in case anybody is wondering, I'm not letting that like blind me on like the risk level, because if somebody made the case that like this is an existential risk, I'd be like, oh God, like we gotta shut it down. I mean, as much as I would like to have all these advanced tools and new things we can do with it, I can respect that, like, well, it's not worth dying over, you know, but I just don't even see the risk on that level. So, okay, I already talked enough about AI. Let's get on other stuff. Let's see. Okay, I'm not even sure I got this. I have not played Eternal Darkness. That's on my to-play list. Somebody's saying, what is the rubric of, is this game dungeon appropriate look like? It might not even be, it's very subjective, I'm afraid. It's like, do I have something I think I can, does this feel like a game where I feel like I can say something interesting about it? Or does this like provoke thoughts in me? That's kind of thing. And sometimes it's not even a game you would expect, like the Trackmania one, or I had some more mundane ones. Well, I don't know. Trackmania is a good example. You wouldn't think that would kind of provoke a lot of thoughts in me, but it did. Or The Crew, that was another one. So, okay, I have to read this one because I think I missed it earlier. Okay, they're talking about there was like a race to kind of get the new Zelda game running emulated on PC. They're saying it was about the journey. Crazy things happened. Oh, okay. What are your thoughts on this? Well, I like interesting stories about it. I guess I have slightly mixed feelings about it. Well, I guess I shouldn't for Nintendo, but yeah, I guess that, yeah, that's the real question. How did the not the publisher, but how does the developer feel for a AAA title that can get pirated quickly? Like, are they? But they're still getting paid. Like, I mean, and the game's gonna still successful. It's like, are they happy that it's just in the hands of more people, but they can't really like say that publicly because of their contract restraints, you know, or is this like a blow to them because they were for a game as big as Zelda? I have to imagine they're either on salary or they're still going to make plenty of money off of that. Like I don't, because I mean Zelda is a big franchise that tends to get a lot of sales. But say it wasn't. Say it was more like a game where like this was their shot to try to be successful, and it got pirated. Although I feel like there's a little bit of maybe a lot of a balancing effect, where if your game is really popular, you're probably getting a ton of sales and you're doing great. And the games that get pirated the most tend to be those kinds of games. So something like Zelda is going to get pirated a lot more than like Lawn Simulator or something like that. And it's not that the other ones don't get pirated, but the people who are your niche audience, probably a much higher percentage of them are going to buy legit copies of it anyway. So it might actually have its own balancing out effect, though I can for sure believe there are exceptions. And you can't trust what the publishers say, because I did the math on this. Somebody can maybe retrace my steps. I forget the number. But I remember at one point, I think it was like the CEO of Ubisoft at the time was saying like 98% of the copies, I think it was like 98% of the, you can double check the quote, I'm sure it's out there, of the copies of PC games were pirated. And I was thinking, wait, no, that sounds way hyperbolic. And so I said, well, here, let's do the math. So I think I compared it to one of the Anno games at the time. It might have been Anno 2070, because that's one I'm still planning on playing. I'm probably going to get to it this year, actually. But, and I looked at like the sales for that. And I think they published them somewhere in one of their reports. And that was a PC exclusive game. So, you can't blame it. You can't lump in console sales, which don't get pirated. Consoles don't get pirated nearly as much. So this is a PC exclusive game, and let's go with that figure, 98%. So they had this many confirmed sales, that, and the math I came to was that if you went by that metric, that would make it the most popular PC game made. Like it would have outdone Diablo 3 in sales. I'm not even sure what PC game has most sales though. Diablo 3 was in the lead at one point, I know. So that means this is just made up, what they're saying. Like, he's just making stuff up. So it'd be tricky kind of getting the accurate statistics to see like at what level does piracy hurt more than it helps, because it actually can help through word of mouth to a degree. Piracy probably hurts more than it hinders, but sometimes you get the pirated, sometimes people might get the pirated version and like maybe that's kind of stripped down and it's like a game that's getting constant updates, and this just got them more excited and they realized, no, I want all these updates and to like play more. You're probably a lot harder to play multiplayer with a pirated game. So they want to like have the multiplayer. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna buy it now. Like, so piracy can actually be a marketing thing. So it's complicated, but I'll say I will support piracy 100% of the time when the publisher or the developer makes no effort to allow you to run your game after the support ends. So if it's a question between, oh no, you can either pirate the game and keep playing it, or you can play legitimately and not be, or you can keep legitimate copy and not play it, I'm obviously gonna favor in being able to run the game every single time. So I'll always defend pirate. And piracy is almost getting more and more necessary. I almost want to say I'm heavily leaning towards piracy in cases where the publisher isn't even making an effort to like allow you to run it without a cracked DRM or something like that. Like the DRM might use a server that, and then they've made no indicator that they're going to remove the DRM later. Because occasionally companies say that, oh, we'll remove it after like 6 months. That's pretty rare though. But if they're releasing it on like GOG or something, so it doesn't have DRM from the get-go, then it's like, yeah, is piracy really helping things? You know, it's probably not, it's probably hurting more than it's helping at that point. But okay, more questions. Any thoughts on the Psychonauts games? I've played several hours into the first one. I sort of lost interest in it. I know that's blasphemy from people, but my impression of it was a very creative game that had a lot of polish to it. And it was interesting, but if it totally embodied this kind of what I would call this kind of Saturday morning cartoon feel to it. And that's usually not my thing. Usually if, oh man, no, it's itching like crazy. Usually if I like something with kind of a Saturday morning cartoon feel to it, it tends to have a little bit more, like, I guess adult focused writing for it, where it kind of works as for adults. I mean, I'm thinking Arcade America is kind of an exception to that, but for some reason that one clicked with me more thematically. But what I'm really thinking of is the cartoon version of The Tick. That's something that was a cartoon superhero show, so you kids could watch it, but you're absolutely don't feel like the writing in that is talking down to you if you're playing that game. And Psychonauts didn't really, but it was like more kind of goofy and over the top, that where it had much more of like a kid feel to it for me. It wasn't quite my taste, but that's just like a taste thing. Like I could tell the game was quality, so don't think I'm knocking Psychonauts. It just wasn't quite my thing. But whereas The Tick just had so much good writing in there, where I was just I loved it. There were lots of little clever writing at it. So as far as where I got to, I think you were either a giant or there was something that was a giant, like in kind of a Godzilla thing, and you were in the suburbs or something like that. I played several hours into it. I was trying to like get like a full feel for it, but yeah, I mean, I know Psychonauts is a cult classic. So again, I can be picky on games. You know, it's I can certainly afford to these days with how many games there are. I mean, God, it's. Oh shoot! Well, this only got 2 points. However, points are measured. They're asking what the success of Mario and Sonic movies and Last of Us series. Is there any less high-profile game series you think would? Yeah, I think they're making Twisted Metal too. You think would translate well to film or TV? Yeah, there's tons, but I didn't see this question till later. So get more votes next time, and then I'll be able to look at it ahead of time and brainstorm more of series I'd want to see. Have you ever gotten into Doom modding? Anything you liked in particular? I did a little bit back in the day, but I was just changing something. I think I tried, this is like way back, I tried a Simpsons mod for it. I mean, now Doom mods have just exploded. Like I've done Brutal Doom. I might do some, I might be interested in more total conversions of it. But the Simpsons one, like you go around and instead of health, you had like blood alcohol content and you would get beers. And I think for, instead of your armor, you would get donuts. You played as Homer. And like they had some clips from it, and one of them I remember they had as Mo, and like instead of like a roar, he's saying, "Okay, here's the 411, folks. Say some gangsters dissing your fly girl. Just give him one of these," and then like he shoots you or something. So it had some fun. And then like I think it had Barney and said like, "Hey, you homo," like as like the demon was charging you or something like that. So it was just a goofy thing, but it was fun for it at the time. I'm sure there's probably yeah. Okay, somebody's saying Ashes 2063. Okay, I'll check it out. I, I I like Doom thematically, but it's just I don't like the old school level design. So I would enjoy like a Doom game with like more kind of 2000s and onward level design, I think. Well, that's why I was so blown away by Killing Time. It's like this is unlike any other 90s Doom era gameplay layout I've seen. Like this map design, it's like you're really out in the forest or out on an island or something. It's like I was like, this is fantastic. I love the feel of this. So yeah, there's I'm sure there's Doom ones I should check into, but I haven't done much in modding myself. I think I might have changed some textures or I think there was something I messed around with, but I'm drawing a blank. Okay, more questions. Well, that's a good question, but I didn't get many points, so I didn't see it. So this time I didn't get a chance to like view every last question. I was pretty busy. If you could design, engineer a new recreational drug, what would you have it do? I guess have one that gives you motivation. That the see, it's not just about what a drug does. It's about what are the after effects. You know, the consequences. Motivation or just general happiness or contentment, something like that. Like nothing too high, but that the fall off would be very manageable. And like that's actually one thing. That's actually one aspect. Well, there are a few aspects of it, but in We Happy Few, that was one aspect I thought they did a good job on, where in order to blend in at different parts of the game, you have to take like this kind of happiness drug, and that turns up the saturation on things, and things are more kind of cheerful. I think like different music starts playing, and so like everything's just chipper and wonderful, and then once you come down off of that, you don't go back to normal. You go into withdrawal, and then things become more desaturated. Things are much more somber. You see like imperfections you didn't earlier, and like it calls attention. Basically, it's making things more miserable for a while on withdrawal before you get back to normal. And I thought that was really clever. Like it's and like I would want a drug like that where it's like very safe. You know the but yeah, I guess like motivation and just kind of bump your happiness a little bit, where the consequences are very manageable. Where like maybe you have a withdrawal, like maybe you have the drug and you have a withdrawal, but it's short enough you can like time it so that you go to bed then. So maybe you have awful dreams, but the rest of your day is great, or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, that's just what I thought up on the fly, but I'm sure there'd be some other creative answers I haven't thought of. Do you think PC gaming in the AAA space is in a bit of a crisis? Nah, well, AAA, I don't know. Probably not, because they can adapt. You know, they can always make like a smaller scale game, or you know, really give a AAA game, a gigantic AAA game, the time it needs to develop. You know, it's just that they don't want to, you know, because that means less, you know, investment. Or I guess investors probably have a say in it also. Plus, indie games are waiting to take up the slack. So I guess if a company goes under, a lot of companies go under, then yeah, maybe I don't know. I really feel like a company could adapt because, like, okay, let's say like every major AAA company just goes under because the investors demand exactly what we've been getting, but they can't deliver because the overhead's too high, like the time's too short or too expensive, whatever. So they're fighting reality, and they lose, and the companies can't adapt, so they just go under. Well, then what would probably happen would be some mid-tier studios that do know how to get a game out under budget that they can, like, make a profit from. They'll probably get a lot more sales, or some indie companies will get like even more income, that some hits, and then they might use that to kind of branch out and gradually replace the kind of dinosaur companies, and then we'll slowly amp up back to where we were. Or else there'll be a couple AAA companies that can kind of weather it, and then they'll keep making like the big budget titles. So, I mean, there's so much competition in it right now that I'm not too worried about that. Let's see. What drives you to create? In all honesty, if you can articulate it. Um, I don't know. I guess the best I can articulate is, like, if I have like a good idea in my head, it's like that can kind of become its own drive to kind of manifest that. Or I can imagine like how people will respond to that. Like, have you ever had a feeling like where you're kind of like imagining or daydreaming and you're thinking like, oh, that'd be so cool if that happened, or like, oh, that would be hilarious, or, but I mean, it's not real, but it's just like you have that thought. So it's like the idea of being able to actually make that happen is probably the drive for it. It kind of connects from that. Yeah, this is a good question. I did see this one. What would you do in a rapture-like event where 99% of all people disappeared immediately after any long-term goals? Yeah, well, that was kind of the plot behind the Survivors TV show, but both the original and the remake, where a super virus wipes out, like, I think it's like everybody except one out of every 10,000 people, so it's like 99.99% or something. Well, in the immediate, I think the thing I would try to do immediately would be to get all the most essential information I could online, because almost all the servers would still be up. So get a lot of survival guides, print them. Get stuff like how to grow food, medicine, maybe some architecture stuff, just stuff that I could stuff that could be lost knowledge. I guess libraries would have something. Oh, the other thing is figure out where all the nuclear power plants are, and figure out like where are the risk that, once these stop being maintained, what areas are just going to become uninhabitable. And yeah, actually, I guess if I'm thinking clearly, I would, well, I mean, it'd be a convenience, but try to get to figure out where I'm going to be living the rest of my life as soon as I can, because the gasoline only lasts so long. That's something they tend to overlook in survival movies. After a point, and well, I mean, I have great endurance. I could go on foot. Let's say I look at that nuclear chart and realize I need to get out of Europe if nobody's maintaining these things, and it's just gonna be just a meltdown for multiple ones after a few months. But I realized, okay, looks like maybe rural Canada is the place to be. Well, crossing the ocean is not going to be no small feat, and my only chance of that is if, like, I have a boat with fuel and I know how to use it, and like that would be quite a task. Or I mean, I don't know. I don't think I trust myself to use a plane or or if it's just land. Let's say I don't even trust that, and I just feel like, no, I better go someplace that's landlocked, that's on the same continent or I can cross over to. Well, then I'm going to want a car. And I need to travel sooner the better. I mean, you would have probably several months, but then like, let's say the pumps for gasoline stop working, and guess you could take a trailer with you to, something like that. So yeah, just trying to think about what we have in infrastructure now that I'm not going to have the capacity to bring back, but I have it right now. So, no time like the present for that. And yeah, again, print out everything I could want. Though libraries would have a lot. Libraries would still have a lot. And then I guess that'd be my main concern. I guess for long-term goals, try to find a community. Maybe learn a thing or two about like radio operation, like ham radio. See if there's anybody out there, or just I mean, I can still bicycle many places even if the infrastructure's down. But I'd want a lot of replacement parts, that sort of thing. And I have good endurance, so I could go slowly to many places on foot. Yeah, I guess seek out a community. I guess if it was just like last man on earth scenario, if I could, I would do research to see if there wasn't, if it was like a last man on earth scenario, I would try to just crash course myself in learning like solar or wind power or like small scale hydroelectric, because that's the only thing I could even remotely maintain for my lifetime. Because again, fossil fuels, I think they all kind of go bad unless you have to have a refinery to do it. So like a gas power generator wouldn't work like years from now. But a solar power thing, if I did all the wiring, had plenty of supplies, would last me probably decades. But let's say the solar panels are going to, I don't know if solar panels just decay on their own or if they only decay from usage. So maybe I could just get a lifetime of solar panels and that's my power. But yeah, so I had better learn a lot more about electrical wiring fast. And then having electricity, I would have all the supplies I need, light bulbs, computer parts, and keep that going. So I would probably just try to catch up on all the reading and music and movies, films, and just stockpile everything I possibly could so I could just enjoy as much media as there was out there and just maybe make, modify my own house. Well, you have to start growing. Well, I wouldn't have to start growing food anytime soon. I could have preserved food for a really long time, but over the long term, I should kind of learn that. But I'd much prefer to have a community, share the load, talk to other people. So it's saying if humanity was knocked after the Stone Age, we cannot recover because any source of metal on Earth available to hand tools has already been harvested. Yeah, but once you have like 100 times the supplies and they're all free that we have made right now, that gives you a lot of options for at least your lifetime, probably multiple generations. So yeah, it's not that. See, electricity is one of those things where, well, one, I have to get away from the nuclear power plants because they're just going to be, that could be a liability once they might melt down, like the old ones especially, that it just becomes a health hazard. But the electrical grid, I don't have that. I'm not going to get that back up without help. However, I could learn enough maybe to get like a solar power or wind power or like a stream on a water wheel powering it most of the time for like a house or something like that. Yeah, you know what? I'll agree with this statement. They're saying, I think humanity more or less can't be knocked back to the Stone Age. The knowledge is already out there, and if we harvest civilization for materials need be. I'll give you a mixed answer. Yeah, okay, so yeah, because even the Dark Ages, that wasn't the Stone Age. But, because, we could collapse from where we are, but that's not the Stone Age. And in order to hit the Stone Age, I think it would have to be so bad basically we're wiped out. So yeah, I think you're right. I think we don't, but we could get knocked back to medieval times. I think pretty easily, under the right circumstances, because the knowledge will be there. But if everybody's working on just like surviving, maybe that knowledge doesn't last a few generations, or wars wipe it out afterwards, and then later people don't even know what this text says, and you might have you might have kind of an anti-intellectual culture by then, or something like that. Well, that's what I thought was clever about Warhammer 40K, is it's extremely dogmatic. This is not a society that values new knowledge and discovery and things like that. No, it is something that like brutally enforces what what we already know, and there's a certain way of doing things. And if that's part of the culture, you can keep that going a long time if you're competent about it. So I thought like, oh wow, maybe a society like that would last a long time. So yeah, so that was a good question. What do you know about your ancestry heritage? What country, regions do your ancestors come from? Geez, my relatives might even probably know more about this than I do. I know I'm like half German, quarter French. I mean, from where the ancestors came from. And I think it's a bunch of miscellaneous European countries after that. There might be random other stuff in there. I think my ancestors, well, on my dad's side, I think they came over from Germany in like the 1800s, maybe. I'm not even sure about on my mother's side, which is more French. Yeah, I don't know. I remember my dad said something. I think when we were talking about like my heat tolerance or cold tolerance, I think my dad said something like, yeah, the farthest south your ancestry goes is northern France or something. So I don't know, but maybe there's some other miscellaneous stuff in there too. So I don't know a lot. It's not something I've been like obsessed over. Just a little curious. But some people like really try to trace out their genealogy. So, but I mean, it can be interesting. Oh yeah, I think they found out like I actually had a relative who was German but was living in Poland, and I forget the name of them, but yeah, I don't know if I'm 100% European or not. I think you can take these. That reminds. I saw a clip where I think you can take these tests where they look at your DNA and then they can match it up to like what's known for those kinds of genomes in different parts of the world or different times. And I heard a story where Johnny Knoxville from Jackass had one of those, and so he went and asked the guy doing the test, and the guy told him like, yeah, you better sit down, and it's like what, and it's saying, well, it's like, well, from your genes, we had a lot of yours come from like the Appalachian Mountains or like the mountain region in there, and he says, and there happened to be a lot of inbreeding in some of those parts. And as soon as he said that, Johnny Knoxville just burst out laughing. so there might have been a little inbreeding in Johnny Knoxville. So, he thought it was hilarious. I would probably take a similar attitude if I discovered that also. I don't think that's something to aspire to, but what's done is done, So. Yeah, so I'm not, yeah, that's as much as I know. If people were really interested, I could ask my parents, maybe some of my relatives, they could probably tell me more. It's just not something I've really paid a lot of attention to for the most part. The most I tend to think about it is that probably defines my cold tolerance, or maybe or maybe that's why I have better endurance instead of but like maximum sprinter or something like that. Oh yeah, I think my uncle said like a few weeks ago, it came up because I was mentioning like the movie The Northman, which, yeah, the movie's, I've heard that's the most accurate Viking movie. It's well done, but it's kind of nihilistic for my taste. And when I was talking to my parents about that, and my uncle, apparently I do have Viking genes on some level. So yeah, I could. So I don't know what the percentage is or how far back that goes, but they said something like that. So I had forgotten about that. Yeah, Bjork saying in the chat. So if the Northman is an accurate portrayal of Viking society, I would have been glad to get out of Dodge. Like that's not how I would want society to be. So it's it looked pretty brutal. Okay. So I'm saying, what is your opinion on current laws regarding emulation, specifically classic console emulation on PC, PlayStation 1, GameCube, Wii, etc.? Is there anything you need these to be added or changed to the emulation laws? Yeah, like if we were doing like just a dream, like okay, like if I was just to make like a dream scenario, I would say like it's basically required for the company to give out to either provide an emulator themselves or to give out the source code as soon as support for the console ends. So as soon as you say we are no longer supporting this, you are either required to release all the specs and source code on it to the public, you know, under like let's say a non well, whatever the license is, or they have to provide a like decent effort emulation for computer option themselves, because like I mean, where's the benefit of not doing that? You know, what we want, or what I think most people want, is to be able to play the games, and we're just lucky emulators are so good on many old platforms. And as they get newer, then, you know, those get harder and harder. So, I mean, I'm glad we do have emulation. I mean, honestly, I mean, if we're just talking complete, let's just change everything about how we do copyright law. I would want it all open. I mean, just sell the, honestly, I could go really far into like a utopic vision, but that would depend on lots of other things. But yeah, I think I think that would be like my minimum, is once you ending support, so you are no longer selling or supporting these consoles, you gotta open that up. I'm not saying it has to be working, but you gotta give like the blueprints, specs, source code, just everything. So, and I know that's so far off from how reality is, but you guys asked. That's my opinion. How many days has it been since Gordon went on a bender and was late to work in Freeman's mind? Oh shoot. I think I talk about this in the next episode. I thought like, oh, did I already mention? I think I already mentioned that, but I was like, oh no, I didn't. So yeah, I should wait. I almost gave it away. Let's see. Has your opinion on Linux changed in the last year? Yes and no. But I'm looking deeper into it, and you guys can help me with that problem. Or if you can't help me, then what I figure, if I'm telling thousands of people I'm having a Linux problem and pointing specifically to it, if we can't solve it, very few people are going to be able to solve it. So, you know, I'll accept a conclusion saying this is impossible also. But I want a conclusion one way or the other, either fixing it or we can't do it under these conditions. Okay, they're saying increasing shift in digital distribution and streaming physical copies of games are becoming less prevalent. Considering that online services can shut down, digital games can be delisted or lose support, what measures should be taken by industry, governments, and communities to ensure the preservation of video games for future generations? Could an argument be made that use of game streaming platforms is games as a service? Yeah, I see those as kind of synonymous, game streaming. Well, not one way. It's like, I see all game streaming platforms as games as a service, unless you have the option to buy also. Well, no, they are games as a service. It's if you're just looking at the streaming. I guess real quick, because I probably said this 100 times, there has to be a way to run the game once support ends and they shut it down. Now, and a lot of companies make that so that it's almost impossible for most games. So they would have to kind of say either turn over the source code or whatever code they had to a government agency if you want a government to do it. I mean, the industry can do it itself. They can just release a copy you can play, without connecting to the internet or a version of that. I mean, some games require internet access, but then you would have to provide server capabilities within that game, at least by the end of life, at least by the time you get to end of life support. Now, but for delisted, if you want to do this, delisted isn't really a problem as long as you can play the game with a crack, because then it's just a legal problem, not a practical problem as much. Now, if it's a delisted game, then government would have to basically make it. See, that's the problem. At some point, in order to do this, copyright law is so restrictive that after a point, there really are no legal options for some games. Because I was just thinking of how Project Cars 2 got shut down. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. I think it was Project Cars 2. That it's been out 4 years, then done, can't play it now. Or Forza Horizon 3 got shut down. And I'm sure there's lots of other cars. And probably part of the reason is because they had these restrictive contracts where they can't use the car licenses in the game anymore. And hey, this probably wasn't the case for them, but let's say they didn't have the money to swap it over to generic models or something like that. Though that probably should have been part of the planning ahead of time, and let people mod it if they want to put in the actual car models back in, that sort of thing. I mean, then you kind of need the government to step in and say no, you should be allowed to run this game regardless of what that contract was, because I mean, you made a creative work that you could be argued is all art, and this is necessary for preservation if you want to do it legally. I mean, you can do it illegally, just say, okay, there was a crack for these games, download the torrent, okay, we can play it. I mean, but copyright law, as it stands, I don't think would allow an option for that. So you would need to change the law to do it legally. I mean, at least with my games as a service thing, you don't need to change the law, you just need to enforce it. So I mean, if I felt like you needed to change the law, I would be much more pessimistic. So that's why I think there's a chance for stopping the way games as a service operates, is because no, there really is a legal argument that this is not legal the way we're doing it under existing laws. It's just that the courts haven't examined it. But yeah, you need to fix copyright law. Have fun figuring that one out. So maybe somebody's already done it, but I feel like if you come up with something that's good and reasonable for copyright law, that's going to require other changes also in order to have it all work. It's kind of how I feel about it. So it's just a giant mess. Okay, skipping some more. What upcoming games are you looking forward to the most? I'm not even sure now. Lately, I've just been looking forward to stuff I want to play that's on my giant games list. So that's what I've been doing. I was trying to remember the last. Yeah, lately I've been playing Remember Me. I am using a a trainer for some parts of it to give me a little bit of a boost. And boy, that's one but man, that game is gorgeous. Like, and the plot's interesting. But yeah, that one came out like, I think it was 2014. And I'm also using these mods to get it to work on ultra wide and to remove the film grain effect. But yeah, man, that's moving up way up on games that I want to go back to this game later and walk around the world in VR. Because man, that takes place in Neo Paris. You know, that game's just I love that one from an aesthetic point of view. Gameplay's kind of so-so. It's not that great. But. Oh yeah, I'll clear this up. They're saying recently Yahtzee tweeted out one of your videos. I didn't notice that. I'm kind of Twitter ignorant, and I actually don't know if people are mentioning me on Twitter. Like, I usually just use it to announce things, make announcements, or put things I find interesting. So, so thanks for telling me that. I'm totally on good terms with Yahtzee. I mean, I gave him a jab in one of the videos because I pointed out how he kind of stole one of my jokes, but it was just a friendly thing. And later he said that, like, you know, it was an accident. He didn't do it consciously. And I think not only did I say it was no big deal in the email, but I also mentioned that later on a video chat, and I gave him a link to that timestamped. So if anybody gave him crap on that in the future, he could just send him that link to show that, yeah, it's all fine. It's not like Saturday Night Live wholesale stealing the entire skit from Joel Haver, which I still think he's being too nice. You should just take a volunteer lawyer, sign papers, let them handle everything. If you don't want the money, give it to a charity. I mean, he's too nice on that. So, whereas Yahtzee, it was an honest mistake. Plus, you know, I mean, especially at the time, I was getting kind of millions of views from Freeman's Mind. I think Yahtzee might have still been bigger than me, but it's like we're in the same ballpark. You know, I mean, and it was just one joke too. I mean, that's not even. Let's say even Saturday Night Live. Well, no, Saturday Night Live would probably come out. They have a lot of money, and those TV stations are absolutely cutthroat on enforcing their own copyright. So yeah, I might get a lawyer to just, if I felt like the joke was so specific, they had to have stolen it from me, and I could get a pro bono lawyer or somebody who would take a percentage to sue them. Yeah, I'd do it. But that's more of like a power thing. Let's say it was just like a popular YouTuber who gets like tens of millions of views, and they took one joke from me. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't want them to do that, but you know, that's not a big deal. But if it's somebody who has a reputation for being mean-spirited and crushing anything that even uses like fair use content from their intellectual property, and the only people you're even really interacting with are just bloodthirsty lawyers, then yes, I will go on even the smallest infraction if I thought I had like if I thought I had a position and a lawyer was willing to work on a percentage or something, because I wouldn't be able to afford to do it like by paying them. But because then it's more than just like the principle of the thing. It's just somebody's saying, what skit did Saturday Night Live steal? Oh, the toilet paper bears. Yeah, look it up. It's like, it's ridiculous. Like I mean, there is room for interpretation on like, well, what's plagiarism, what's parody, what's two people just having the same idea. No, this was clearly in plagiarism. Like, it's okay, so I have not played the Arkham games. I might get to them eventually. I'm not usually huge on comic book games, but I know a lot of people have kind of raved about those. Wow, okay, we're going over 3 hours now. I should wind this down. Okay, let me checking some more. I haven't played Mountain Blade franchise. I think for my taste, it's like a little too dry. It was my impression of it, but Uh, I know it has like a cult following and has a lot of depth to it. Okay, well, this is a decent question. What are your thoughts on the blockage of Activision Blizzard acquisition by the UK? Phil Spencer claiming that Xbox can't compete with PlayStation and Nintendo. Well, I hadn't heard that last comment. Obviously, that's bunk. I mean, come on, they're one of the. Oh, poor Microsoft. What are they valued at? I think they're valued at over $2 trillion. Like they might be the most valuable company. Let's see. Microsoft net value or okay, Microsoft net worth I just did a Google search, 2,297 billion. So they're from a Google search, they're worth 2.3 trillion about. Poor Microsoft cannot compete, guys. Like that's so hard. That's so hard on them. So yeah, that's what I feel about that second part of the statement, and really the first part too. I mean, when do monopolies like really work out well in the long term for people? Not that I think them taking Activision Blizzard is a monopoly in itself, because I just said there's tons of competition for games. But I mean, what about the desktop OS? How's that competition looking? Well, yeah, I think we looked at Steam stats. It's like 97%. Well, that's pretty damn close. That's about as close to a monopoly as you get. So I mean, they're so enormous, and we've seen. Hey, all I have to say about this is remember the original vision for the Xbox One, where it was a console that had to dial in every 24 hours or it would stop working, would not allow games to be shared. It had the Kinect, which not only was a camera, it required the Kinect to work, which not only was a camera that can see everything you do and is uploading that to Microsoft servers, but it also was monitoring like some biometric stuff, like your heartbeat, I think maybe, or like the heat you're giving off, that sort of thing. So it's sending some biometrics back to the Microsoft server also. And this is required for the Xbox One. And I think that was before they were doing, I could be wrong in this part. I think that was before they announced parity between the Xbox and the PC. So they were still having exclusives planned, that if you wanted to play a specific game, you had to have it through there. So that's, I want to say they were doing something else too that people weren't liking. Like, again, it might have been with game sharing. I think they were allowing game sharing, but under like, you had to jump through multiple hoops to do it. I forget. I'm a little fuzzier on that one. Yeah, they definitely were like looking to kill the used games market so that it wouldn't be possible on it. Yeah, again, we're talking the original vision. Like we're talking like E3, or the original announcement. They walked back some of it. Okay, somebody's saying you couldn't do game sharing with the original vision. Yeah, we're talking like and I think they were trying to like move in on like the TV market too, or so that it would like, they were trying to like get a foothold so that this would become like the future for television also. There might have been something else restrictive they were doing. So it's like I said in the follow-up video, that's when Microsoft had its mask off, all right? Like that's what Microsoft wants for gaming. So that sounds like hell to any person who enjoys playing games and just wants to play. I'd say there's two big markets of gamers. One, people who just want to play the damn game and not deal with all this other crap. And well, no, there's three. There's people like me who want to play old games and don't want to see your games destroyed. I mean, like some people are just interested in new stuff. Fine. But a lot of people want to play have a favorite game they want to play, or just want to play old stuff that they might have missed or things like that. So it's going to piss off those people, and it's going to piss off people who are hardcore about privacy. The thought that in order to play the game, you have a camera on you and it's sending biometrics back to it. I think I heard on a podcast for Cracked, I think, where they were saying like this is like some Generation Xers, where they're saying that people who like kind of grew up with still having some of like the Cold War scare and read 1984, once they heard how the Xbox One was supposed to work, it made them want to like burn. I think he said something like it made them want to burn the factory where this was made. And so because that's how they feel, because they probably have like this deep gut instinct on the fact that like they are just harvesting this information about you and just coming into your home and knowing everything you do. I'm honestly a little more chill. I don't like it, but for me personally, I'm probably a little more chill about that sort of thing. But I can totally respect that. I don't think this is a good precedent. And I totally respect people who are really against this sort of thing. Like, I'm not against them on that. So yeah, that's where I see anything related to Microsoft getting bigger. That's the road it takes us on, where they can destroy all your games, take all of your info, and trying to get a monopoly hold elsewhere, where they already have. I'd argue desktop PCs. Microsoft has a monopoly, or de facto monopoly, especially PC gaming. They have a de facto monopoly. Yes, you can play games on Mac and Linux, but if you look at market share, it's just not even close. So they're trying to take us to a monopoly, can destroy your media, and so you never have ownership, take all your privacy, harvest it, and just try to branch out into other areas where they take out over other things. So, of course, I am going to support anyone blocking this merger. I mean, I think the people are looking at it, but then no one will, but Microsoft's going to be a better steward than Activision and Blizzard. Yeah, okay, so maybe they won't actually assault the employees. But then that comes at a much higher cost. It's like that's really the metric we want for whether they should merge or not. I bet you could find other buyers that won't assault their employees, than Activision Blizzard. And plus they're acting like, oh no, if Microsoft doesn't buy it, Activision Blizzard's gonna die and we'll lose all these great games. Oh yeah, you think other companies aren't interested in like having all of their intellectual property, like Call of Duty or, Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch? I mean, yeah. Oh yeah, that's gonna be so hard to find another company to pick up the mantle on that. So I feel like just all the framing around this is just so skewed. And the European Union already gave the go-ahead on this. So it's like the UK is like the only ones holding the damn line on this. I hope they do. I mean, this is... I don't think the risk to actually having games, like new games, is that high because there's so much competition from the indie market. But, I mean, Microsoft, like with their Game Pass, they could try to like make streaming only games or games that you rent more and more the norm. And then let's say 5-10 years from now, they start coming out with exclusives that, no, you can't buy this anymore, guys. It was fun while it lasted, but you gotta sign up and have this online only streaming game, which we're gonna kill maybe 4 to 5 years later. Hey, they delisted Forza Horizon 3 after, I think it was 4 years. I might have the numbers wrong, but I mean, they've done this before. They've killed multiplayer games on the original Xbox that you can't connect to them now. So, I mean, we don't have to like speculate on any of this. They're gonna do it. It's just a matter of when. Yeah. I see nothing good coming from Microsoft being bigger. And that doesn't mean nothing positive can come from Microsoft. It means that anything positive that comes from Microsoft is not a result of them becoming bigger. They're worth $2.3 trillion. And we're not enforcing antitrust law on them like just about anywhere else. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I don't want them normalizing the idea of renting games, not because I think renting games is a bad concept. It's because I've seen where they want to go with this. They're going to weaponize it. So, yeah, so that lays out my thoughts on it, and I fingers crossed they don't get the deal. I mean, okay, I have not. I've watched a playthrough of Rain World. The gameplay wasn't my thing, but I did watch a playthrough of it. I don't have any $2 bills. I have seen a few of them in person before. I don't know if I ever had them in my possession or not. I mean, I got to hold them or something, but yeah, $2 bills are kind of cool. They're like the secret dollar bill, you know, of the U.S. currency. They're I guess, do they still technically make like quarter dollars? Like, you know, I mean, for sure they're not in common circulation, but maybe you can, or 50-cent coins with like a JFK. I don't, there's some of these that are like still technically, I mean, they're still legal tender, but I'm just wondering if they still make new ones. It's just that they're so rare, you almost never see them. I kind of like that when you almost have like secret currencies, you know, or dollar bills. I've always found that stuff kind of cool. Do they still make 50-cent coins? There's a $100,000 bill with everyone's favorite president, Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, but that's not a new thing. That was like back when, like, you know, that was meant for like large transactions between banks, you know. But before you had wiring money, you know. Oh yeah, there's real big ones, especially from like the 1800s and early 1900s. I still think the coolest one is the one I showed in the Gothos episode, where they had like the goddess or whatever holding up the lightning bolts, and like you have chariots with light bulbs, and like, that would just look badass. I love that one. Okay. Ross, have you considered uploading your videos to other platforms like Rumble or Dailymotion? Yes, and I'll probably have a volunteer that I trust to do that, because I don't have the time to do that with everything, but I could just give them my collection, maybe give them like a percentage of the income from that, and they could just put it all up there. It's a little lower priority for me, but it's something that, like, if I don't have to do all the tedium on it, and I can give a percentage for somebody to do it, then sure, why not? So it probably won't get like, YouTube's still going to be the place for the foreseeable future where new stuff is going to happen, but I mean, where it's going to get the most attention. But I mean, if it doesn't take more work from me, then sure, why not? You know. Okay, the question that's been asked before. Is there any other levels you hated besides level 3? I don't even know what that's a reference to. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of good level 3 levels, you know? I sometimes don't always remember everything I've said, too, though. Okay, this is a bot. Oh, and you have me wrong. I don't hate elves. I just, it's like when they're talking about like dwarves and elves here, I'm just gonna, I'd like to throw them shade, you know? It's kind of like a neighbor that bugs you. Okay, let's see. I'm reading here. Oh yeah. Okay, they're asking. Okay, well, I talked about that previously about the Deep Rock Galactic or whatever the name is. I like the theme, but the gameplay wasn't really my thing. Oh yeah. This is a great quote. Yeah. Oh, okay. I saw a variation on this. They have, we could automate menial jobs so people have time to make art and music, but apparently we'd rather automate art and music so people have time for menial jobs. Yeah. That really sums up a lot of my attitude about AI. You know, the AI is not the problem. It's like where we're pointing it. You know? And the thing is, even the menial jobs aren't even guaranteed, you know. What contingencies do you have if and when possibly Steam shuts down or becomes unavailable for any reason in terms of game preservation? I'm trying to like slowly have more and more of an personal archive of like the installers of the games or the installed versions that can just run offline. I'm doing it less so for more popular games where I'm not really worried about it. Like, oh no, let's say Grand Theft Auto 6 or something, which I still haven't played. Oh no, it's 5. 5's the latest one. See, I'm getting them mixed up. Goes down. Oh, I bet it's going to be really hard to find a copy of that. Yeah, you know. So, but for rarer stuff, it's already a risk. I have some indie games that have that haven't been pirated, and not because they're online only, just because they're too obscure. So, those for sure are ones I want to back up. Okay, tell you what, you can start asking questions. Do the @Ross broadcast. So it's saying, watch where you're pointing that AI contraption. I'm just going to check the last few questions while I wait on the delay. So I was asking statistics of the videos coming out per year. I haven't looked at them, but it's probably fallen lately. But I want to kind of make up for it. Overwatch 2 publicly advertised PvE content for years, but now Blizzard said they won't release it because it is too hard. Is this a strong case for a false advertising lawsuit? It depends on how they presented it. It really depends on their wording. Like if they said like, oh, we would like to, we're really hoping to have a PvE environment, and see that's not really actionable because but they're saying like we will have PvE content after 6 months to a year or something, then that's actionable maybe. Yeah, I'm getting a knock on the door. I'm winding it down. Let's see. Okay, somebody's recommending Gaming Gargoyle as a YouTuber. Makes Doom machinimas. Okay, I'm just skipping some more. Oh, and somebody's asking if I have release dates besides holidays. No, they just get released as soon as they finish. Like in fact, when you look at the videos on YouTube, there's a chance like the color will actually be better if you watch it the next day or two. Because sometimes I upload them like as soon as it's processed, bam, I publish and it's gone up. And sometimes there's a little more behind the scenes processing on YouTube, I've noticed, but yeah, no, they get released as soon as they're finished, for the most part. Sometimes it's a day or two, but that not more than like 2 days, I don't think. I haven't seen the latest activity on. Yeah, I heard Team Fortress 2 voice actors were playing games with themselves in it. I wouldn't want to do that. Like hearing myself a bunch. How do you feel about publisher revoking your license and refunding you without your permission to do so? I want that tested in the courts, is what I want. I want the law to come down and state the legality of that in black and white. I mean, of course, I don't want that, period. But if they're doing that, let's have the law weigh in on that and get a solid answer and not steal games based off of this gray area crap. So, okay, somebody's saying they love me. Thank you. You know, anytime I see that, I think of Wayne's World. It's like, no, I love you, man. It's like, oh, thank you. You know? So. How did you develop your strong grasp of logic, patience, and ability to have good intentions of others? Especially in the face of Yukowski, who might have been disingenuous with his arguments at his points, if you agree on with that. Do you? Well, okay, first off, I could have made logic mistakes in the interview, if a lot gets thrown at me, I might be slow to process it. But if you like give me time to process it and go step by step, then I can typically follow it. As for the way he presented himself, really, the way I was looking at it, like the overwhelming way I looked at it was, okay, he's someone who believes that AI is going to make humanity extinct. I mean, he believes this. And so I could look, if I was trying to put myself in his shoes, if I was thinking like that, I wouldn't really, maybe I'd be kind of impatient with people, or I might get like a little sloppy with my thinking or with the arguments, because I mean, that has to be, and if you believe that, that has to be an incredible amount of stress. So I was trying to give him like a wide berth on that, where, you know, maybe he's saying some things I don't really agree with, or it's like a little off, but if that's not really relevant to like the main point, then it's like, yeah, that's not as big a deal. Or maybe he has tactics that maybe he's used to arguing with people that are like bad faith actors against him, and so he just can kind of slip into those habits as like kind of a defense thing. It's like, so, and I mean, that wasn't my intent at all. I just wanted him to explain like let's go step by step how we get here. And I don't think it quite worked out like that for us. But so the point is, I'm willing to give him a benefit of the doubt on a lot of this stuff. However, I do need that part explained if I'm going to believe him, though. But yeah, I mean, look, that has to be really stressful, I think, for him living like that. And also, I think somebody else asked me about that. It might have been a little subconscious again, but to go back to Roadhouse again, there's a great quote in there that's like, be nice until it's time not to be nice. So I think that's a good approach to things. You know, in fact, I think I totally unintentionally, I think I seemed to upset him at one point when I was just sort of talking about like, okay, well, let's assume this is real. How would you go about doing that? And then we sort of got a little deeper into that conversation, and then something happened where it sounded like he was real upset. And I was like, whoa, that wasn't where I was going. I was just trying to like do this as a thought experiment here. So I forget exactly what he got upset about, but that's about what we were talking about. So yeah, that's what I would say is that if he believes this, even if he, maybe even if he can't like really explain it, if you really believe it, that can, you know, that kind of, the thought of humanity ending, that can weigh down on you. So I'm trying to look at it that way. Let's see. Have you seen Gory Cuddly Carnage, a game about a hoverboarding cat? Yes, I got your email on that. I haven't replied yet. So yeah, there may be a new hoverboarding game with a cat hoverboarding. Considering how more creator hostile YouTube is becoming by the year, if it does implode, where do you see everything going? I have no idea. I'll follow the crowd is what I'll do. But hey, I have a website, so you can go there. Oh yeah, yeah, I think I mentioned that already. So yeah, I don't know. Well, that's another reason to have my videos on other popular channels. I mean, not websites. Is there a genre of game you would love to see get a real revival? For me, I'd love to see more point-and-click genre games. I think those can be really fun. There's a lot, there's a lot out there. I mean, for point-and-click. I think a lot of people have been saying, like real-time strategy games, people have been mentioning. And those have been a little low. Actually, I heard lately maybe even driving games for like big open world stuff. I mean, I definitely enjoy a lot of those. Like, what would you, I kind of want, I don't know, you say revival, I'm not even sure it ever got off the ground in the first place, but I wouldn't mind seeing more done in the first-person shooter, real-time strategy hybrid genre, where that can mean you do a little bit of both, or it can mean you specialize in one area, not the other. I think there's a lot of potential for cool stuff with that genre. And also, I call them first-person shooter RPGs. I guess other people call them immersive sims. I think there's room for more of that sort of thing. But, or maybe like, hey, more open-ended narrative stuff. That could be good too. Or yeah, of course, the squad-based action RPG like Dungeon Siege. Yeah. Oh, that's total. It's like what? How is this not have like a dozen clones? How does this genre not have a dozen clones of it? I also like. I also kind of like roguelike first-person shooters. If like the mechanics are good and they're not just like purely punitive. Like if you have a high skill level, you can go like pretty far in them. It's not just like you have to die 10 times or something like that. There's been a few of those, but I found myself liking those. So, what's your opinion on the Fear games? I've only played the first one and Perseus Mandate. I think I played a little bit of Extraction Point. And I played like the start of 2, but I didn't get that far, only like an hour or 2 in. First one's awesome. I mean, it's got a real mood and atmosphere. I actually have a frag video I made way back when, back when Machinima was a website. I haven't put that on YouTube because it has copyrighted music on it, but maybe I could find a way to release that if people wanted to look at it. And it was from Fear multiplayer. But yeah, it's very visceral. Fear has a lot going for it because it's very visceral. Like it has a high kind of creepy tension, like with the music and the lighting, it has very mundane environments, but they handle them in such a good way that it's great, and the destruction level is fantastic with, taking out chunks of the wall, smoke coming in, kicking up drywall smoke and sparks and stuff everywhere. Yeah, so it's got a lot going for it. I'm actually kind of surprised more shooters didn't copy more from Fear. Maybe they patented a lot of crap and that suppressed it. I don't know. You don't have sponsored content for VPN service providers or Raid Shadow Legends. Is nobody requesting? It's not worth it for the money, or won't you compromise your artistic vision for videos? They are definitely contacting me. In fact, I almost wish I could put on like the only reason I put my email on the YouTube under about part for business stuff is it's not really for business. It's just that if you want to find a way to contact me, there it is. And maybe some people would see that and miss it on the website or something. But I actually want to say, please don't ask me to promote stuff for sale. It's not about compromising my artistic vision. It's more about like, I don't want to annoy the audience. And I figure like it's half I don't want to annoy the audience, and half I don't really like doing that stuff and like pretending to sell something. And like, I have to really believe in something to be like a good salesman. And I'm not going to do that for pretty much anything somebody's likely to send me. It's just like, yeah, it's a VPN. I guess it's all right. I don't know. Like, yeah, that would be my ad, but I would probably try to give it some entertainment value and make it more fun. I guess I could do that. I don't really know how much money I'd be missing out on. I'd rather just try to have I already have ads at the beginning of the YouTube video. So I figure, like, I feel like that's pushing it as it is. So, let's see. I missed a question. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, it's paused because I was looking back at that. I don't know. Yeah, actually, my wife was bringing that up the other day. It's like, well, if you do that, it's okay. I think people understand. It's like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I only want money to the point of having like financial security. And yeah, I want to buy some things, but that's not the majority of my budget at all. Beyond food, rent, basic supplies, that's like what, 90% of my budget or something. Well, okay, yeah, maybe. I guess essential stuff, maybe stuff like, you know, a doctor visit or uh, things like that. But I mean, beyond that, yes, I could spend money on that, but it's like if I'm getting if I'm getting extra money, that's coming at the cost of like kind of cheapening the videos for you guys, where you don't have to worry about like an ad being thrown in your face or something like that. So I'm saying I'm fairly sure it is a lot of money. Maybe. I mean, but also you guys are, a lot of you are giving donations each month. So, I mean, while I'm not against, yeah, well, I'm not like morally against the concept of double dipping. Like, I feel like that's kind of, it is a little insulting, I think, to the people who are donating it. So I'm trying to be like really wary about this stuff, and I tend to just err on the side of caution with it. So, I mean, I don't know if maybe I mean, I guess I could cave eventually, but it's like I feel like if I want to sell out, I kind of want to cash out too, and not just keep doing that. I don't know. Some people have handled it well though. Like I think like Linus Tech Tips tends to be, they tend to like, they're just out in the open and they'll make like a joke leading into the sponsor and they're just out in front about it. So that's not so bad. And I think he stopped doing it, but the comment etiquette, internet comment etiquette they would have funny ads. I would try to make it more like that. But then that takes work to come up with a new skit for each one, so. Okay. Would you enter your movie in a film festival if it's eligible? Sure. What kind of torture devices would there be in Game Dungeon? I don't know. I mean, bad games for sure. You know, it's or quiz you on a game that you can't just rush through. You know, you have to go through slow details in order to like actually be able to answer the questions. Okay. Are blind people sentient? Well, of course, you know. So this is one of those where I feel like they're leading somewhere, but it's not clear to me where. You know? I mean, they're not visually aware of their environment, but I mean, this is one of those that's, yeah. Have you ever heard of Poe's Law? Where it's the concept where you're not sure if somebody's making a joke or if they're being serious on the internet. Where the idea is it seems so outrageous that this has to be a joke, but maybe it's not for some people, you know, because people on the internet can believe various things, you know. It's surprising things. Okay, well, he's talking about until he gives me reason not to. It's like, well, I guess the other thing about it was with the debate, it's like, I think I was really trying to give him the benefit of the doubt because, again, maybe he's used to like not having like good faith discussions on this, or just falls back in like old habits. But the other thing is, I actually wanted him to give me an answer I understood. It was a debate, but my goal wasn't to win. My goal was to figure out who's correct, because he knows much more about AI than I do in many different areas. I think maybe I might be slowly understanding something more than he does about like the neural networks, or not even that, but like the lack of similarity from neurons to artificial neural networks, because I mean, I'm not, so, you know, my goal was to just have what? And the thing is, if you're taking like a real hostile approach to that, what I'm thinking is, well, what's the purpose of that? I mean, to vent? I mean, I'm not really upset with him. You know, I don't think this is happening, at least at this point. You know, in time, I don't think it's going to become sentient. So if he wants to believe that, that doesn't bother me that much. I mean, he can believe what he wants. It's not causing me actual problems that I'm aware of. So, I mean, I don't have like some grudge with it. Plus, the other thing is, if you're taking like a super confrontational tone, then people are gonna kind of bottle up and like be less likely to explain something to you, because now they see you as an enemy and they're just there to try to tear you down. And that wasn't my goal at all. Like my goal is still just like, okay, spell it out for me. How does this happen? Because I'm not seeing this happen. So am I missing something, or are my conceptions incorrect? Like, hey, even on that chart, I have question marks and I have like option 4, something I haven't thought of. So I'm leaving it open that like I'm not the end all expert on this. So, okay, I think I better, so it says, if you agree to never do ads, I'll send you $10,000 right now. Well, I mean, I'm still doing the YouTube ads. That still counts for, but I'm not doing mid-rolls, and I don't do, they're called post-rolls. I uncheck those boxes on each of the videos. So there is a video at the beginning, and then that's it. So right now with YouTube, but I don't control YouTube's ad policy either. Okay, well, I think I better go then. So this has been going on a while, man. Yeah, you won't have to go on. Yeah, if you do decide to appear, we can try to guess how long it'll be. It won't have to be this long as the video chats. So, and someone's asking a good question. What's the last joke someone told you? I can't remember. It was probably dumb, I think. My wife will send me a lot of memes, many of which involving cats, but I'm drawing a blank on them. I have started saving some of the jokes I find better just because I can't find them again later. But I'm drawing a blank. I'd have to look at the list of them. Okay, yeah, and I'm just remembering from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you know, I wrote them down in my book so I wouldn't have to remember. And that's kind of, I'm definitely developing more of that habit as time goes on. So, all right, that's it. Thanks for showing up. Maybe I'll be talking with some more people in the near future. We'll see. See you later.